guys ready?
Yes.
Good evening. We're going to call our meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. This is the Monroe Township Board of Education meeting. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Miss Allen, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Ms. Alvarez? Here. Ms. Belko?
Here.
Ms. Bora?
Here.
Ms. DePayne?
Here.
Ms. Fabiano?
Here.
Mr. Gorham?
Here.
Ms. Ratner?
Here.
Ms. Scott?
Here.
Ms. Skirby?
Here.
Mr. Tofano?
Here.
We have a quorum. In accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law, the Monroe Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published and electronic notice provided by having the date, time, and place thereof posted September 15th, 2023 and March 1st, 2024 at all schools on the district website, Home News Tribune, Cranberry Press, and filed with the clerk of the municipality.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is our closed session resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Township of Monroe hereby moves into closed session in accordance with the Sunshine Law, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, NJSA 10:4-6 through 10:4-21, to discuss the following subjects: matters protected by attorney-client privilege. Following closed session, action may be taken. The discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public at such time as the need for confidentiality no longer exists. Can I get a motion to go in?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we will be in our closed session until approximately 7:15. Thank you. Good evening. We're back in our public session. The next item on our agenda is our presentation of our preliminary 2024-2025 school budget. I'll turn it over to Dr. Chanley.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. The presentation is going to be offered to you by myself, Dr. Lehman, and Ms. Allen. There are some copies, I believe, as well as being provided on the screen. So I want to first just thank the Board of Education and all of the committee chairs regarding their support as we move forward to get together a comprehensive budget that puts our children first. As always, and as you'll see when we move forward with our strategic planning, which will begin on March the 20th, and we do have a website for those of you that are interested in participating, please go to that website, which is off of our main website. We will be looking at our current vision, mission, and then, of course, our budget philosophy, which will give us the roadmap, give us the opportunity to move forward to have something in mind. That's what a vision and a mission statement is. Currently, our vision statement is as follows. Monroe Township Board of Education commits itself to all children by preparing them to reach their full potential and to function in a global society through preeminent education. Following through for a vision statement is the mission statement, which is what you're going to do to make that happen. The Monroe Township Board of Education commits itself to children by preparing them to reach their full potential and to function in a global society through a preeminent education. As we all know, in order to move forward and do what is best for our children, money plays a major role, and that is how we come to the budget. The Monroe Township School District Budget Philosophy, which was presented in January, states the Monroe Township Board of Education will establish an annual school budget that supports the implementation of educational programs based on educationally sound and fiscally prudent planning. As we move forward, we have a timeline that's provided to you. So as the public, you can have an understanding of how we do things. Budget timelines and, of course, the priorities are as follows. As you can see, in November, December, there was budget defense rounds with administration and staff. This is something that was started many, many years ago under 5 superintendents before me. And what happens is we actually meet with the various different departments. We meet with all of the principals and the supervisors and what we call a budget defense round. It allows the individuals to come forward on behalf of their departments, on behalf of their particular content areas, on behalf of their schools to say what they need to do, what they need to spend, what they need to hire, what type of programs they would like, looking at the curriculum. And then we meet with them and we talk it through because, of course, we're always moving forward with the same mindset that we did during the referendum, and that's the wants, needs, and must-haves, because we have a lot of wants, but we always have to make sure that we take care of our must-haves and our needs first. In January, we provided the budget philosophy in a presentation to the public. In February, the state aid was released to the public. March is a preliminary budget hearing. That's for this evening. Of course, the budget adoption and the annual school election will happen in April. Our areas of priority is always to maintain and evolve the 21st century curriculum programs. Our goal is, when we are not able to add on, we want to have at least maintenance. We are a school district that functions at a very high level. Our children do exceptionally well, and we want to make sure that we don't remove anything from them that would hinder them in moving forward. So that's where we come up with the word maintenance. Student staff safety, address capital improvement needs. We're very, very excited that we now have officially received the approval from the municipality regarding the shared service agreement, which will then allow us to have approximately the $10 million that we need to move forward with doing what we need to make Applegarth what it should be. Considerations and variables. Gradual depletion of the general fund surplus. So general fund surplus is something that will be explained a little bit later in this presentation by Ms. Allen, and it basically just provides you with monies that we were able to keep and monies that were utilized to balance the budget in the past. We are looking at rapidly evolving curricular expectations. We look at varying class sizes across all grade levels. Inflation costs. We all live together in this community, and we all know that a loaf of bread is not the same it was a couple of years ago, and to purchase a car and anything else that you purchase, we have had costs increase through inflation. Healthcare, salaries and benefits for all bargaining units, and long-range facility technology and transportation plan. So we know that we have a one-to-one initiative at the high school. We wouldn't want to go backwards. We want to make sure that we can maintain. Once again, I'm going to utilize that word quite a lot throughout the presentation, as I know Dr. Lehman and Ms. Allen will as well. So we are looking to maintain what our students currently get here in Monroe Township schools. So when we talk about responsive leadership and governance, some of the things that we were able to do, we had labor agreements and district reorganization. So we proactively, successfully negotiated fair labor agreements with all units before the contract expirations. For those of you that have been here for a really long time, you know that our teachers in the past with the MTA had worked without a contract, and we were fortunate that we were able to settle that contract before the expiration of that contract. District reorganization and optimization of personnel. Some of the things that I have done under my leadership have to save monies more than $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, looking at reorganization through attrition, through when people retire. We did not necessarily replace that person. We went ahead and created different jobs, moved over responsibilities, and that was at a cost savings. And we did wind up with a $6 million in premium savings to health insurance. And I do want to bring that back once again through negotiations. I was not part of negotiations, but as a consultant to the negotiation process, I was able to see how the negotiation team, along with Ms. Allen, worked diligently, because in the end, in order for us to be able to go to have the MTA organization's employees go to the state plan, which allowed for the $6 million in savings, we had to be able to negotiate their other wants, needs, and their must-haves. Because in order to get them there, we could not have afforded the cost that it would have been if we would have remained with our carrier at the time, which was Aetna. Special education efficacy and effectiveness. A couple of things that we do look at is we look at our out-of-district population. When appropriate and they need to be out of district, we do believe that it is worth the cost. Why? Because we do not have the programs that they need to be successful. They are as important as all of our children, and therefore we will spend the money and they will remain out of district. When appropriate and when we're able to create programs or change programs or create pilot programs, if we're able to keep our children in district, in our own schools, we do so. It is at a cost savings. We only do it, however, if we have the right programs. Another thing that we've been able to do this year, and we're going to continue to do it, we have 2 additional classes that will be starting next year. One of the things that came out through the referendum in my own presentation, which is near and dear to my heart, is to bring back the special education self-contained programs that are currently housed in only certain schools in our district. So if you happen to live on the Applegarth Oak Tree side and your child has the needs for a self-contained program that perhaps is in Mill Lake, Woodland, Barkley Brook, or Brookside, that means that your child does not go to school with their possible brothers and sisters. That means that your child sits on a bus upward of 40 minutes to 55 minutes, to 58 minutes, to an hour and 2 minutes, whatever it might be. It means that when your children are playing outside, they do not get to play outside and then matriculate with the same children because they are in a program that has only been provided on one side of town. I'm very proud to say that we've moved a class, and 2 additional classes will be moving to Oak Tree and Applegarth School for the September of 2024 school year so that we can give the children what they deserve and the same equality in the social emotional aspect that we give to our academic children as well, who possibly may not have a need for those self-contained programs. So as we move forward, I am now going to turn the program over, the presentation, actually it is a program, over to Ms. Allen to discuss the monetary aspects of our budget. Thank you.
Okay, so the first slide shows the total budget revenues. Sorry, thank you. So our total budget that we are presenting is $154,721,296. Of that, the general fund is $142 million. That's our operating budget. Okay. This, I don't think it works. Okay. Okay. General fund. Can you hear me?
No, it's because of the lighting, he said. The lighting is interfering with it. Can we shut the light off?
I think Nancy's going in.
Okay.
No, it's the lighting.
No, it's the lighting that was bothering him.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Allen?
Yes, okay. I can't see. Okay, so the general fund budget is $142 million. The special revenue budget is $1.4 million, and the debt service budget is $11.2 million. So of the total budget, the local tax percentage is 84.75. The state aid is 8.37%. So those two numbers combined is 93% of our total budget, just from those two categories. The remaining categories of tuition, fund balance, federal aid, miscellaneous revenue, transfer from another fund, transportation fees, are 7% of our budget. So this year, our general fund revenue grew by $400,000 only, using the base budget at 2% with the health care adjustment. So that's only $400,000 that we would be able to grow our budget if we didn't increase our tax levy. I have a chart. There's a handout with the revenues that shows the individual sources of revenues, a comparison of the 2 years. So fund balance is really the biggest issue here. Last year we had $5.7 million that we could use as a revenue source in our budget. This year we have $3.1 million. That's a $2.5 million difference, and that's really that's really the problem with our budget this year. Trying to come up with that. We have a transfer from another fund, which is the same this year as it was last year. The taxes would be, if we were to, the 2%, well, the 2% tax levy with a healthcare adjustment, which we are allowed this year, plus an extra 2.42%, would come up to $120 million, which would balance our budget. The other revenue sources we have are tuition, which is $4.2 million, and the other miscellaneous and transportation fees, which are at $1 million for those. Our state aid this year, we got a $1.1 million increase, which, although it's 9.9%, increase over last year, we still got less than we did last year. Last year, we got just about $1.6 million. So we did get a decrease in the increase, if that makes sense. We got less of an increase this year than we did last year. So again, we are very limited with our resources, with our revenue resources, and trying to grow those. Okay. So excess surplus is the next slide. So surplus is the difference between the budgeted and actual revenue and expenditures. Excess surplus is determined each year by the auditor as of June 30th. Excess surplus is the fund balance that's remaining after deducting all the restricted fund balances that are assigned or non-spendable or committed that we are not allowed to use, and the allowable maximum unassigned fund balance that we can use. So that amount of excess surplus that's determined by the auditor must be included as a revenue source in the second year following the audit. So our audit from June 30th of this past year of 23, that amount of excess surplus of 1.4 million, I think it was, would go into this year's budget. The excess surplus from the prior year is the amount that must also get included in the subsequent year as a budget revenue. So as you can see by this chart, the excess surplus from June of 2016 was $11 million. And now, today, as of June 23, it's 2.4 million. So that is really tells you that right now we are more efficient in our budgeting. We are closer to actual expenditures, like what we really need. And it's more realistic. We're not over budgeting, we're more realistic. So that explains why we have less surplus. The next chart is the total budget expenditures. So the total budget expenditures for the total budget is $154 million, which is a 1.64% increase over the prior year. The largest amount of our expenditures are for instruction, special education, related services, and tuition of $76 million, and that represents almost 50% of our budget. Following that is the benefits, which are $31 million and represent 20% of our budget. And you can see facilities, 12 million, debt service, 11 million, transportation, 10 million, and so on. So this is, those are the totals. The next slide shows the budget expenditures for the general fund since 2016-17. And you can see the differences, the increases over the years and the percentage change. And other than the 2 years really with the COVID, we're very low. This year we're at 2.28% over last year, which is an increase of $3.1 million. In 21-22, there was an increase of $9 million. So it's our expenditures are really not growing. We are definitely trying to budget less and less. So we're not spending at a higher rate, as high as we have in the past. Okay. So the next slide shows that with this tax levy, if we were to include what we have as a gap in our budget of $2.7 million and add that to the general fund levy, the tax impact for the total would be $24.17 on an average assessed home, which is assessed at, I think it says $332,000. So that would be the impact to include the extra 2.4% of the tax levy.
You all set, Ms. Allen? You good to go?
I think so.
All right, so I was asked to pick this up as a part of our conversation. Is the mic on? We good? I was asked to pick this up as a part of our conversation to take us through what this looks like for us moving through the month of March and into April with the election. So when we started our budget development process in October, we put the budget together, we had our defense rounds, and it included a philosophy where we would take the entire budget out to a vote in April. If it were approved, we move forward. If it's defeated, we would then collaborate with the township to resolve the situation. So on January 16th, and you can see up on the presentation, Public Law 2023 C-289 was signed into law. The impact of this law for us is as follows. On March 27th, the Board of Education, so that would be this coming March, would vote to approve the budget up to cap, including adjustments. So that number for us is 2.42%. That represents the 2% cap, and then as Ms. Allen just mentioned, a 0.42% adjustment for healthcare. That adjustment is calculated by the state. It's input into the budgeting software that Ms. Allen utilizes to communicate and transmit our budget up to the county and to the state. Anything above the 2.42% is now considered an additional spending proposal. That's the terminology in the law. This additional spending proposal is what is voted on April 16th. Next slide, please. So what does this look like for us? So standard district operations, traditional program evolutions, basic capital improvements are included in our budget up to the 2.4% cap, 2.42% cap. Again, that's our 2% plus our 0.42% healthcare adjustment. That makes it 2.4%. The additional proposal going to vote includes the following, and it's listed up here. This presentation will be on the website. We're also developing a website in terms of communication that the public will have access to. But here is what would be included in the additional vote. The retention of courtesy busing. Courtesy busing is defined as busing for students K-8 within 2 miles of their school, so that's courtesy busing, as well as courtesy busing for students within 2.5 miles of the high school. After school busing and athletic transportation. The retention of school-sponsored co-curricular and extracurricular activities, school-sponsored athletic supplies and materials. That's what would be included, in addition to some other things, in terms of what we're looking to retain that we already have. So in Monroe, this is something we've had for years. We would love to continue, and it would be a part of this additional proposal so we can maintain it. Additionally included in there is the addition of one autism teacher, one autism para, one English as a second language teacher, one English as a second language paraprofessional. Those are staff members specifically needed as we grow with our English as a second language student population, as well as we maintain students in district in our high needs, special needs classrooms. Additionally, we would propose one business teacher and one technology education teacher. Those two teachers facilitate and allow us to continue to offer sections specifically in our economics area. That would be the business teacher. That is one of the most rapidly growing areas and classes in our high school, as well as the technology education teacher addresses the needs in the computer science courses that we have. We were able to expand offerings this year. Those students are now cycling up to higher level courses, and the technology education teacher would help fill the gap where those students are moving into sections that we need to open up and create. And then the last personnel piece in there is an additional security officer. And then we have two facility projects that we would also have included in the proposal. One is the design of the roof replacement at Mill Lake. Again, that is a needed project. The way we proceed with our facilities pieces is we design them and have the designs ready to go. So the next step would be acquiring the funds to do the project, and then we can put it out to bid. So this is the first step of usually like a multi-year process. And then the second piece in there is what's called Phase 2 of the Special Services parking lot. So what we've done moving forward is we are pulling our Special Services home base out of the rented office space and relocating them to the golf range. Embedded in the budget would be and what we're doing right now is we're renovating the space there so they can occupy that space. That will save us the increase in rent that we would acquire. But a part of making it a public, safe space for us is we have to ensure that there's handicap accessibility as well as safe parking and things. So this is the second phase of us moving into that facility. So that's what would be included in the second, we call it the additional proposal. And you can move to the next slide. Thank you. So as Ms. Allen presented tonight, our entire budget, including both the board-approved budget to 2.42% and the additional proposal from the April 16th vote, would result in an increase of $24.17 based on the average assessed home of $332,000. So that is the net outcome of this total budget, including what would normally be approved in a traditional, no matter when we're approving our budget, vote plus this special question that we have. And then you can go to the next slide. The next steps include the March 27th Board of Education vote to approve the final budget, and then on April 16th, the vote on the separate proposal. And that wraps up our initial budget presentation. And again, this is our preliminary budget piece. We will take the preliminary budget, upload it to the county for approval on the deadline to do that, or the beginning, or the date for us to do that is this Thursday, March 7th. They will then communicate back to us the approval of that, and then we can proceed forward and have our meeting and question prepared for the election.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Dr. Lehman. I want to open it up at this time to our board members for any questions.
I do.
Mr. Payne?
Yes, going over the 3 pages over the weekend, thank you. Regarding special education, I wanted to ask, it says learning, D teachers' salaries, and other. There's quite a few of those in that section. What does the other mean? Can that be explained?
Other salaries? Oh, yes. That would be paraprofessionals. So teachers are a separate line, and then the other is the paraprofessionals.
So for audience and to put this up on our website, would that be extended more to explain that it would be paraprofessional so people would know what that line is?
This is actually the way it's worded in the budget. That's the name of the account.
I'm just asking because because there's quite a few of them that
Right.
say one line,
That's
teacher
the state-
salaries, and and they're all paraprofessionals on the second line?
Generally, on these yes, generally on these, they are paraprofessionals,
Okay,
yes.
okay. And then I have, on our bilingual students, can
Yes.
I ask how many we have in ESL in our district?
I'm not-
Dr. Lehman?
If you give me a minute, I will look it up, and I'll
Yeah.
get as close as possible.
That's fine.
But
Thank
just
you.
give me a second. I don't have that offhand.
Thank you very much. And then I wanted to know, too, I mean, I wrote on there needs more description, but you just described it for me, so I appreciate that. This is the assistant superintendent and the supervisors are listed on the same line. Is there a reason for that? Is that also state? Is most of these descriptions part of the state requirements?
Yes.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure. Also, Dr. Chanley's increase in her salary, where is that listed in the budget?
That's under general administration,
Under general.
which is two under the curriculum, 2 sections under the curriculum.
Right under library.
The middle of the page. General administration.
General administration, I
Yep.
see that.
Her salaries.
What
and
number is it down? 1, 2, 3? Count which
The
one?
first salaries.
It's included in that.
there along
Okay.
with other
Because I didn't see
salaries.
it separated out, so I
No,
wanted to
it's-
know where it was,
Right.
included.
And that's
Okay.
along with other salaries.
Correct.
Right, I
Yes.
understand that. It's included with other salaries. I understand that. And of course, we got the state aid.
Yep.
Let's see. And that answered my questions, that the paras were included in the second line of all the salaries. Oh, legal. Does the legal services, which is down, going to be, was budgeted down this year, less than 17.11%.
Yes.
Does that include the phone calls, the emails, the things like that? So that's inclusive of all we see on our financial report when we get a bill from Porzio?
Correct.
Okay. Well,
And
thank
there are-
you.
yes.
Thank you. You came down this year? Very nice, Peter. Appreciate the little,
Do you want?
what was that? We're getting sued less, so
No.
then, okay.
So, no, there isn't. This is because of, like, last year, we had negotiations and other items in there
Okay.
that we don't anticipate.
Okay, just thank you
Yeah.
very much for all the explanation. You know, when you're looking through this and you're novice at some of these things, and you're like, what the heck? And I assumed it was, but I don't want to assume anything on a budget
Okay,
that I'm going to be voting on.
of course.
So if I have any other questions, and I know Mr. Gagliardi explained some things to us too, that is new. Well, it
Yes.
isn't new, it's been out there. So there's a lot of us to take into consideration before we actually make a good vote on this budget. A lot for us to understand. I mean, and the public should know all that too.
Yes,
So,
yes.
okay, thank you very much.
Yes, Ms. Boer?
Thank you. He has the number first.
Oh, Dr.
Oh, we
Lehman?
did? So, Mr. Payne, we
Yes.
have 186 students in the English as a second language program, but there's also a process as students exit the program that we have to monitor them for a certain period of years after that, just to make sure that they are maintaining the growth that they sustained while they're in our ESL program. So that does not include the students who have recently exited that are on either on year 1 or year 2 of being monitored, because if they do not continue to make progress once they've
Okay.
exited the program, they are required, and we bring them back into the program to receive services
So you're
again.
saying as a freshman, they felt that they did really good and they exited the program?
So
Can you
there's
explain it?
they take a test,
Okay.
the WIS test, and that test, when they demonstrate the growth and at a certain level, they are exited from the program.
Okay, and then as a sophomore, they tested again to see if they're keeping,
We monitor their grades, we monitor the
Okay.
external factors. If they are struggling, we can then bring them back
Okay.
to support them again to make sure they're good to
okay,
go
good.
to leave.
Thank you very
Yep.
much, I
But-
appreciate
So
that.
186 is students in the program right now. There are students that we are monitoring as
Right.
well.
Okay, I
Yep.
understand, thank you very much.
Right, Ms. Boer?
Thank you. And if I can just comment on that, if memory serves me right, this is the second consecutive year, I think we have increased the budget related to ESL. I just remembered from last year. But my questions, my first question, maybe Dr. Lehman, this might be for you. I see that the textbooks, there's a reduction in what we are budgeting for it this year, and I just wanted to understand that this is physical books, and that's why we're reducing, because there's a 45% decrease in what we're budgeting, or is it programs included? This is on the very first page, regular programs instructions. The textbooks, we have reduced the budget by $140,000.
Yep, and that just represents, we kind of cycle our textbook reimbursement process. This year, we had an intention to do a refresh on our elementary science program. We were able to get an additional year out of our current program because they counted our first year, which was partial pilot year, as our first year. When we, in discussion with them, they said, we won't count that first year. We'll count that as a full pilot year, and we will add on the additional year. So that represents is what we kind of had in the normal cycle of refresh that we don't need to use this year.
So it's from a cost savings handed down to us from a provider. You're not cutting
Nope.
costs here?
Nope.
We're not compromising on
No,
instruction
actually,
either.
and there's a, and I don't know the specific textbook off the top of my head, but there's an increased enrollment in a few of our high school courses where we needed to buy some additional textbooks. So there is definitely, we're purchasing the books that we need
Okay.
to conduct the courses, or whether they're online books or they're physical books. But this just represents kind of a natural ebb and flow of, resources and textbooks that we make big purchases, and then they're paid for over a few years. Like our math book series, I think we're on year 3 of a 3-year payment plan. So next year that will fall off. And if that's not replaced by another, like we'll do science next year. So science will probably pick up where that reduction is next year.
And this is both online and paper books
Yep.
included in that budget line
It depends
item?
on, elementary
Okay.
is mostly print books, workbooks and things. As you get to the high school where they're one-to-one, it depends on the course and what books they need.
Thank you for that detailed answer.
Yep.
There is a line item for lead testing of drinking water, and I wanted to draw attention to that. We did not spend that much money on it last year, but we are budgeting money for it this year. Ms. Allen?
Yes, because in the past, the state has paid for the program, and now we have to pay for it.
So we're not getting that money from state?
Correct. Mhm.
But it's procedural, whatever we
Mhm.
were doing in the previous year, we're going to continue to do that. There is no concern?
No concern.
Okay.
Nope.
There was a reduction in health under supplies. It's a
Yes.
small amount, it's $26,000. What is it that we are not going to be budgeting
So-
for?
So that would be for AED replacements, and instead of putting them through this budget, on this line item, we are going to include them in a lease purchase, so we have 5 years to pay for them. So it'll be part of our lease purchase.
Oh, so we'll, smaller payments,
Yep.
lease,
Yep.
AED you said?
AEDs.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. There was one thing that caught my attention, and I already asked Ms. Allen that, but I do want to publicly ask that again for clarification for everybody. On the last capital outlay section, there is a facilities construction services line item that is reduced by over $1 million. Ms. Allen, do you care to explain that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, so last year, we learned that we had received an additional $1 million in state aid for Applegarth. So that is why it is $1 million higher last year, or for 23-24. And that money is going to be part of, used with the ROD grant in conjunction with the ROD grant.
And we
So
can-
that's our difference. And
So
hopefully
there is a
we'll-
chance we could get something this year, and that would appear next year.
We hope.
And make this number look different.
Yes.
That's all for my questions right
Yep.
now. Thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Ratner?
Yes, Ms. Bora just asked 2 of my questions, so I literally was crossing them out. But actually, I did raise another question. The lease purchase that you mentioned.
Yes.
Where is that listed on the budget, or is that a separate thing?
So that is listed in the payment. The payments would be listed in the various accounts where it will be paid from, because it's over time. So those items will come for board approval in, I think, June or July, is when we do this every year, that we will ask you to approve that, and we'll have a list of all the items.
Okay. The out-of-district placements, I saw that was a very significant
Yes.
increase of an additional
Yes.
$543,000. I guess my first question is there a reason that we are increasing that so much? Is there something that additional students need? And also, to tie into that, does that include charter schools as well as special education schools?
Yes. So we do have some students that are pending that we will be placing out of district that we are aware of right now. So that is why, that just kind of points out that part of our budget issues, that's a big cost in 1 year, and plus the transportation cost that goes along with it. But yeah, so that's why that's increasing, and our charter school is also increasing. I think it's about $60,000 or $70,000. And that is something that we just learned of. That comes along with the state aid. We learned that on Thursday. That gets loaded into our program. That's when we find that out.
Does that also include the aid in lieu of, so that the people who utilize transportation?
No. So that's in the transportation account. So there is a line item for that. And it's, find it. Transportation.
Special education contract.
No. It might be combined. Let me just tell you. I can look it up. So that's $347,000 of aid in lieu
Okay.
to be budgeted for next year.
And then I have a couple more questions. Just one under student services on the supplies and materials that are there. I saw that there was a decrease in miscellaneous purchase services, but then the supplies and materials almost doubled.
Yeah, so, let's see, okay, so the supplies and materials include, I think 8 portable sound systems, that will be used, and some child study team testing materials and supplies that are additional over last year, filing cabinets, recorded books, things like that. The miscellaneous purchase services is decreased because of scanning that they used in the prior year that they're not going to be using this year, that they scan all their records.
Okay. On the resolution, it mentions the $400,000 of anticipated earnings. If we were not to earn that, what happens? Because I know we were discussing how you can't necessarily move things to pay for certain other things.
Right. So that would be something we would have to adjust in the budget, try to find a way to cover that if that didn't materialize. I think we do have plans, though, for Falcon Care and ECE for next year. Right, Dr. Lehman?
So what Ms. Allen was referring to is we're looking to move the ECE section for Oak Tree back to Oak Tree. So we have a classroom available, and that would also eliminate the transportation between Oak Tree and the Mill Lake Annex twice a day. It would be much more efficient. The students wouldn't be on the bus to school at Oak Tree, back on the bus to Mill Lake, back on the bus back to Oak Tree, and then back from Oak Tree to home. So it's a much better and efficient program. So that's something that we are preparing to put into place.
Okay, just my last question. The Mill Lake Elementary design of the roof replacement, is that something that would fall under, I guess, like health and safety, or is that just a initial cost? My reason for asking is when I was reviewing the separate proposals, it says it can't include that, so I was just curious.
Right. I don't believe that is for health and safety. No, Mr. Tate.
Okay.
No.
All right.
So that would be okay to include in our separate proposal question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a
Ms.
question.
Alvarez?
Yeah, I just have one question. On the first page, under regular programs, it says new staff. Is that one person or several people?
Under
The
new
f-
staff under teacher salaries?
Yes.
So those are the new, let me see. Do you have that?
Yeah, I know.
Okay. 4?
I could just tell you. It's a technology education teacher, a business teacher, an autistic teacher, an English for second language teacher, one paraprofessional for the ESL, which is English for second language, and one paraprofessional for the autistic program. Do you leave anything out?
I saw the autism teachers
Yeah, that's
listed
separate.
separate.
Oh, I apologize.
That's a separate
So it would
account.
not be on there. That's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So then which ones are they again?
So
Can you?
it would be the business teacher, technology education teacher, ESL, and I think that's it. Yeah.
The ESL is listed under bilingual education, new staff. Same page,
Oh.
towards the bottom.
Oh. Okay, yeah. Let's see. Let me look. Yeah, I'm just looking. Okay, so there are some extra hour, like extra thing, like parent-teacher night, things like that, that gets included in that account. And those other 2 teachers, there is a, I believe there's an amount.
Well, I mean,
I think that's it.
they give the breakdown of how many new staff we have, and then it's broken down into these areas.
Right.
Is that amount?
If you want to read what's included in joint meeting for the public,
That's different.
It's,
If I can ask the follow-up question to what she just asked. So the total central services line item
no.
is different
no.
from,
This one, regular programs and
oh, regular programs and instruction.
Okay, from what's in here.
new staff, 250,000.
Okay. And that, the bilingual staff is
Separate.
a separate item, or is that
please speak into
breakup
the
of
mic,
that?
they can't hear you.
Sorry. So the bilingual is part of that total regular program and instruction budget of 39 million, 500,000, or is that a separate?
Bilingual?
That was what I was reading.
Right here.
Was it
That's
there?
here, yeah.
I'm
So
actually
that's
looking
on-
at an older copy, I'm
Yeah,
so
it's
sorry.
this one. Do you have it attached to your packet? No.
Older copy.
It's this here,
Okay.
is the bilingual.
So, this and this is separate line items?
Yeah.
This
these are
one.
Identify what
Yes.
this and this
Okay.
is, please.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
You pointed to the paper and said this and this. We can't
Sorry.
see what you mean.
So the question right now is that the new staff that we have, that we're looking at, which is going to be part of the special proposal, has a technology teacher, a business teacher, an
teacher.
ESL teacher, and an autism teacher.
Right,
The understanding is the autism teacher is
Is in
part
a
of the
separate
special
account.
education.
correct. There is another academic support included that's in the separate proposal too, for grades 6 through 12. That is in that line item. That makes up the difference.
The one
That's
I
two
asked about?
teachers, yes, and that academic support.
Okay.
That's in a separate account. There's a new security officer in a separate account under the security.
Did you have any other questions, Ms. Alvarez? Did you
I'm
have
sorry, I
any
didn't
other
hear you.
questions?
No, no more
Okay.
questions.
Ms.
I-
Belko, did you have a question?
So I have a follow-up question to that same question. So it sparked my thought process. So would some of these new staff include the monies that, for example, we approved at our last meeting for new staff for those positions that we have to, they're entered every, when we approved them last month and we went through a whole discussion about this, these would be those people that we're approving for new staff for those positions that we have to do every year, say, I'm just going to say the basket weaving coach, all right? I'm just going to put it out there. The basket weaving coach is a position you post every year, and this year Ms. Alvarez wanted to be the basket weaving coach, and Ms. Fabiano was the basket weaving coach last year. I'm sorry, ladies, looking at you. And so this year we would approve, Ms. Fabiano doesn't want to do it anymore, so now we're going to approve Ms. Alvarez to do it, and that would be the new position. Is that part of what's in some of these new staff listings, or is that under salaries and other places? Because it is a little confusing, right? Because we have all
Right.
this stuff, and now you're saying that
No, these are-
the security guard is in a different spot, this person is in a different spot, so
Yeah.
just help us to understand where some of this new,
Right.
what is under some of this new staff, like what is, because $215,000, are we paying one person $215,000? Or are we paying 4 people that, and that would be a little bit understanding kind of thing?
Right. No, these are new positions, new people that are coming in.
No, two.
No, 2 teachers and then the academic support, which I don't know how many,
Is that correct? 3 full-time equivalents with health insurance, is that correct?
yes.
So let me just ask this. So
Okay.
new staff under regular programs and instructions includes the computer science teacher, the tech teacher,
Mhm. The business
the business
teacher
teacher,
and the academic support.
and the academic support. That's
Mhm.
3 people
Yeah.
in that
Three.
section, in that one.
Yes.
So then the new staff under special education instruction,
Yep.
is that the autism teacher
Well,
or?
it depends. If you're looking under new staff under learning disabled, that a lot of these under the special education new staff, if they're not, if it's not the autism, you'll see the autism teacher is 75,000, say. Some of the smaller amounts are just because of the ESY program that we needed more, we have to budget for more
So
teachers
in the
for-
special education instruction, line 4, where it's 2312.
That's for
That's for
ESY program.
ESY?
Yes.
Okay. And then the other new staff where we're at 6,900 and change,
Is ESY,
that's more ESY?
Correct.
Okay. And then,
75,000 is where you're looking at.
and then you.
where's the
autism-
75,000? Where's that?
Autism new staff.
So under, no, I'm kind of going by my page here, so if you could bear with me a second, all right? New staff, 73,329, is that the autism teacher and the para, or just the teacher?
No, actually, that's the teacher, and it's also includes ESY, extra ESY.
One autism
Yep.
and ESY, okay. So bear with me, I'm just
Yep.
going to turn the page, my fellow colleagues here. Because I did have these same questions, and I thought they were answered, but now I'm confused. Health, new staff salaries, is that for ESY?
Which one is it?
Under health,
Health?
second page?
Yes.
ESY. And I'm just going down, I just want to make sure I'm not missing. So where is the security guard?
The security guard is under plant operations and maintenance. That's where the security accounts
Okay,
are.
so that's, okay. Is that under new salaries?
It's new salaries,
Okay,
correct.
so that's
Yep.
different language, but that's the security
Yes.
guard?
Mhm.
Okay. And then there was someone else, who am I missing? The autism, I still didn't, oh no, I found the
That's-
autism, never mind.
That was on the first page.
Hold on, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so those are all the new
New.
staff,
Mhm.
new salaries.
Correct.
So I think I got it straight in my head. I hope my colleagues have it straight in their head?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you for
Ms.
doing that.
Fabiano?
you're welcome.
I just have a question regarding the percentage of salaries from the regular instruction teacher salaries is 2.11%, but basic skills is 4%, bilingual is 4%.
Mhm.
Why are they different?
Because of it's not strictly, the 4% is based on their base salary, so there's other salaries in there, that, other additional work that they do or other pay that they get, longevity and so forth, that's not subject to the 4% increase. And there's, movement in that account in and out, so that would explain why it's not just a 4%.
I have a follow-up comment on
Sure, Ms.
previous
Ford.
discussion. So anyway that we're looking at the new staff salaries, we are
Mhm.
looking at salaries and benefit numbers.
No, benefits a separate account.
So
So
when I
that's
look
strictly
at $215,000,
That's salaries only.
just salary,
Mhm.
no benefits.
Correct.
Anybody have any other questions? No? Okay, at this time, we will open it up to questions and comments from the public. Anybody wishing to address the board, you have 4 minutes. Please come up and state your name and municipality. And this is only for the budget presentation.
Good evening, Pradeep Melam, Monroe Township. So first basic question, your budget is increased only 1.64% on the last page in the grand total, all accounts. But we are thinking, and your proposal is like 2.42 is cap plus 2.41, which is result to 4.83%. So I couldn't get that math in my head.
I'll let Ms. Allen explain it, but I know something that we've all kind of learned about this during this budget process. The amount increase in your budget is different from the amount increase in the tax levy.
Yes.
So the percentage that the budget is increasing is not necessarily the percentage of what your tax levy increases.
Okay.
So, and Ms. Allen, if you could explain those numbers better.
So your tax levy increase is only on the tax levy. So the 2% is only on the tax levy. It's not on the whole budget. So so it's on the prior year amount, which was 114 million, I believe. So it's 2% of that. tax levy.
Yeah, I have a question about that. Let me
Okay.
ask you that question.
Yep.
So last year, 2023 and 24 budget, the tax levy is $114,676,549 exactly. So what will be the 2.42% and what is the additional 2.41% of dollar values?
Yeah, so there's the 2% plus there is a health adjustment of 0.43, I think it was.
0.42,
Yeah. And the balance is what the separate proposal question is really,
Yeah.
2.7.
My question is like, what are the dollar amounts of 2.42% and the additional 2.41% that you are going away?
2,769,586. That is the amount we are going out for a separate proposal, and that is the difference in the tax levy. That's what makes it up. Is that what you're asking?
He's also asking for this amount. What is this?
Oh, so,
When we go over to.
yes. So that would be the 117,447,992.
That is for 0.42%.
That's the 2%.
Okay.
2%, well, it's the 2, what did I say? I didn't, oh, I'm
It
sorry.
was 117 million, not 1,000.
Okay,
Sorry.
117 million.
Okay.
Okay.
Another question, these ESL teachers that required, for which school, middle school or high school, which school they are required?
So we will assess who's in and out of the program and make the call based on, like right now we share ESL teachers between schools.
Okay.
And based on who moves in, because we have an ESL population that's growing rapidly, as Ms. Bora spoke to, this is the second consecutive year of a pretty significant growth. So right now it's not determined the exact location, but it will 100% is needed. Just a matter of how many students are moving into the middle school, how many students are moving up to the high school, and where we need the sharing to occur.
All right. So another question is like, if it is approved, once it is approved, then whatever the tax levy that you are collecting for 24, 25 will be the base for 26 and 27 budget, 25 and 26 budget?
Yes, that will be on the ballot, that this will be a permanent increase. So that
Okay.
will be the base, that would be the base.
All right. Now, on the additional 2.41%, do you have a breakup for the transportation, especially for courtesy busing? How much is it? And you have a dollar value for courtesy busing,
Yes.
after-school busing, and athletic
Yes.
busing?
Yes.
If you can't answer now, you can email me. Like I can drop an email.
Do we want?
You can give it. If we have the numbers, Ms. Allen, if
I
you
do.
could give that.
Yep, I have it. So the courtesy busing amounts to $963,610. The after-school busing is $63,403. Was there another?
You can keep going. Like athletic transportation?
Athletic transportation was $150,000.
Okay. And their programs?
Okay. Should I just read them all?
Sure.
Okay, so, I'll just read them in order here. So the design roof replacement at Mill Lake is $80,000. The refurbishing of the parking lot, special services Phase 2 is $135,000. The club stipends are $386,000. The club purchased services are $95,960. The club supplies are $30,560. The club registrations and memberships are $25,276. The academic support, grades 6 through 12, is $107,000. The athletic supplies are $320,071. I did the trips. The autism teacher, $69,482. The autism para, $26,025. ESL teacher, $53,682. The ESL para, $19,647. Benefits for the new teachers, $40,000. Security salary, $56,506. Business teacher, $53,682. Industrial arts teacher, $53,682. and that totals the $2,729,586.
Great, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
So, if public voted down, what is the alternatives for courtesy busing? Have the board thought about it, or you are going to cross the bridge once people voted down?
Dr. Chairman, would you like to?
So absolutely, we started having those conversations. It is our hope that doesn't become the situation, but then we would have to start looking at paid services for the courtesy busing and/or paid services, whether it be a pay-to-play or paid services for after-school busing.
Okay. Have you considered the cost for the township if you cut the courtesy busing and people started walking and driving for the police and crossing guards? Because when we had a cancellation of courtesy busing few years back, there was a big discussion about like, why don't we cut across the town to save more money? Everybody says Buckleview doesn't have Buckleview Avenue or Barclay Brook, and that side of the town we don't have a sidewalks and it's very risky. So that's why we are cutting only the people who have the sidewalks.
So in anticipation of that being concerned, we had reached out to the township. Ms. Allen reached out to see if we could set up a meeting prior to our presentation, and they, at this juncture, had declined to have the meeting with us to have those specific questions about, if there are no sidewalks and we have to have,
Additional parking,
additional
crossing
persons
guards.
for crossing guards, how would that work? And we weren't able to have that meeting in anticipation of this meeting.
Yeah, because like one of the board and district responsibility is not just education, but the safety of the kids coming into and going out of the school as well. I just want to make sure like you are not cutting corners on that one. And with this budget, how our average cost of pupils is going to increase from 23 to 24 and 20 from that to next year. The average cost of tuition for each kid in each level of schools, like what is the elementary cost, what is the middle school cost, what is the high school cost currently, and how it is going to increase in 24-25, and because that is going to impact the Jamesburg as well.
Yeah, we don't have the information tonight.
Okay. And if we cut the courtesy busing, and if we offer the busing, so right now we are offering busing for Jamesburg students as well, and we are charging them. Mm-hmm. So is it going to change anything in that dynamics if we cut the courtesy busing?
We would, yeah, the transportation director would look at that to see what the route cost, what it would cost. Okay. Yeah, that's what she does every year.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, board members. My name is Charles Eichner, and I have a few questions I'd like to ask you. Was any grant money reflected in the budget?
Yeah. Answer, yes.
From where?
Yes, we have 1 point, let me just get it. $1.4 million of grant money reflected in the budget.
And where is that from?
Most of it's from the federal government for Title I, Title II, Title III.
What about IDEA grant?
IDEA, yep.
Okay.
That's our biggest one.
How much from the IDEA?
That is the separate. 1.2 million. Thank you.
Okay. And the where under what category would I find the superintendent's and the assistant superintendent's salary? I didn't see it
The
broken out.
superintendent's salaries under general administration, and the assistant superintendent's salary is under curriculum.
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
The assistant superintendent is under curriculum. It says the first line, salary of assistant superintendent and supervisors.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I interrupt you?
No.
Okay, thank you. The strategic plan that you that you had in effect from 2020 to 2024, unless I'm incorrect, was never assessed. So what my concern is, on the strategic plan that you guys have in place, from 2024 to 2029, do you have an assessment piece? And part of that assessment piece that you should have, I assume you're going to assess the implementation of that plan in a reasonable amount of time, not necessarily at the end, but as is on an ongoing basis?
Sure. That's an excellent question. So it is assessed, so the strategic plan that's currently in place is something that's regularly, almost like a living document. It's something that's utilized. It comes out, I work along with Dr. Lehman, and has the categories of expectations, how we're going to get things done, how we're going to monitor that those things were done in the various different areas, and it's something that's ongoing. So we don't wait to the end to assess it. So if it was basic skills, Tier 1 students, I'm just coming up with examples, they are assessed. The programs that we have in place and the different areas in which we want to grow or expand are assessed as we go along. So when we create the new strategic plan, it's not going to be out of the air. It will be based upon, as it should be, what came before.
Do you have time periods for that assessment? I mean, is it a formalized assessment?
It is not a formalized assessment because it's supposed to be an ongoing continuum. But there are certain places, and Dr. Lehman, if you want to speak a little bit more on it, there are certain places that will say 6-month period of time or a year, depending upon what it is. I don't know if you have an example.
So go ahead, please.
So let's talk about the March 20th strategic plan. So we will go through the new plan isn't in place yet. We haven't even started development yet. So the first meeting's March 20th. We'll go through 3 series of meetings as a community to identify goals, right? To identify focuses, areas of needs, areas for growth. The administrative team will then take all of that feedback, and over the summer, school boards collects it and gives us documents, common ideas, common theories, right? And we're all a part of it. Everybody can be a part of it, and we would welcome you to be a part of it. Over the summer, we will set up basically an action plan. And depending on what comes out of that, not everything gets done year 1, right? Not everything gets done year 3. There's a tiered rollout of things. And just an example, in the previous strategic plan, COVID happened. So we had things in place, development of the plan, and the needs of the students coming out of COVID impacted some of the things that we had in our strategic plan because we didn't anticipate having to address those issues. So moral of the story is it's assessed ongoing. The new plan will certainly have benchmarks and timelines for things to be accomplished. But again, it being a living document, unexpected things happen or new funding comes in and we can do something else that we were maybe waiting to do until we had funding and we changed timelines. So moral of the story is we will assess as we go through. There will be an assessment kind of benchmark process as we develop the plan. And it'll be shared. The goal is to share it out at the end of the summer, the beginning of next school year.
Would the assessment plan include rubrics for the assessment? In other words, if you have your goals and your objectives laid out, normally what you develop is a rubric that ties into those goals and objectives. Will you be doing that?
I think we will take a look at what assessment's appropriate for what our goals are. You know, what assessments line up with what our tasks and our goals are.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. So I have a couple of questions about the budget here. First and foremost, can you explain, so you tout your ability to cut the health benefits or have a health benefit savings in the district of $6 million. But at the same time, you say the state allows you to go over cap without a vote for those type of expenditures. If you didn't make those $6 million in cuts to the health care benefits, which obviously impacted our teachers, not from a great, from a negative perspective because they got inferior benefits, if you didn't cut that, you would have been able to go to the state without a special vote, and you wouldn't have actually had to move the election for this additional amount. Is that correct?
No. No.
Ms. Allen?
No,
can you say that
there
louder,
is
please?
a limit on how much you can go out, how much the healthcare adjustment is. Like, for example, this year, in our situation, I think it's $900,000, and we can get the $500,000. There is a limit. You cannot just get a $6 million adjustment.
So
There's
what
a
would have been the
calculation.
limit? What would have been the limit of the 6 million then? So can you quantify that 6 million? What if we would have kept it in the budget?
So every year that changes. There's a calculation
So what is the
in the
calculation?
budget program where they look at what the average weighted amount of the increase in the state plan is, and they allow you anything that's over 2%, basically, of that as a maximum. So, I think I have a calculation. But so that changes every year. It could go up or down. So for this year.
What is it?
What is,
Can you explain what the calculation was?
yeah, I'm going to get it. Okay, I don't have that with me, but it's, I can get that to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just find it distasteful that one of your proud moments on this budget is cutting $6 million for healthcare benefits, right? That savings that forced our teachers into a plan that obviously, was not as good as they had. And I know at the time, there was a whole thing with the union negotiation because they actually released the slides after the deal was solidified, that you threatened them that you were going to have to cut teachers. I think it was about 50 teachers if they didn't agree to these healthcare benefits. So it really doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but I mean, if that's the way you're going to save money on the backs of teachers, I guess that really shows the intention. You're showing us a 2.41% increase to the budget that's going to go out to the vote, but that doesn't take into account over about 3% that the town had to give the board to match the grant for Applegarth schools. So if you look at the actual cost to taxpayers, if this budget were to pass, it's almost 6% that you're over. And there were a lot of residents at last night's council meeting that were in disgust that the council had to give this board that amount of money. They were very vocal. They made it clear. I don't see how the public, they're not happy with that they're going to be happy with this. I also found that on the slide where you showed the excess surplus, you said, you're budgeting better. But you're not budgeting better if the surplus is going down and the hole is getting deeper here and we have to go out to a vote. I mean, in all honesty, Ms. Skirby, as the board president, took over, her term started in 2021. And if you look at, she touts fiscal responsibility. This graph is very simple. The last 3 years, we've gone crashing down into the ground, and this is the first time in the history of this district since the 2% cap has been in place that we've had to go out to the public for more money. So, that's the truth. In 2010, this 2% cap was put in place. We've never once had a special vote that the town had to go above that amount. So it's clear that there is a big financial problem here. I don't even know if you know how to define fiscal responsibility. I would challenge you to give me the meaning of it, either the board president or superintendent or whoever wants to answer the question. But these numbers are staggering. And it's a lot more than you have on this piece of paper, like I said, because just because the money is coming from across the street, it's still coming out of the taxpayer's wallet. So really, this is a 6% ask from this board this year, and we haven't seen this in any years prior. So if you're running for re-election and you're going around saying fiscal responsibility and, we care about the taxpayer's wallet and we're doing great things, that's BS. All of the word BS. This is the first time we've gone out. We are deeply in a hole. I think the numbers you're projecting are nonsense, and it's all on the backs of us taxpayers.
Ms. Allen, can you please explain the fund balance and where we've gone over the last several years? And also, the increases to the budget, and when we were over, I believe there were periods of time where we were 4% over cap, but because we were able to balance the budget with $11 million of fund balance, we didn't have to go out to the voters. Can you explain all of that, please?
Yeah, so there have been, there have been years, I'm trying to find it, where we have gone over the 2% cap. Many years, actually, because of healthcare adjustment, because of enrollment adjustment or bank cap. So really, other than the last 3 years, 21, 22, 22, 23, and 23, 24, which were 2%, it looks like every other year since 2013, 14, it's been above 2%. So
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. You have to remain decorum. We have to remain. We are not lying. No, excuse me. You're out of order. You cannot be shouting from the audience. You had your time to ask your questions, and Ms. Allen is trying to answer the best she can. Ms. Allen.
Yes. So other than the last 3 years that it was at 2%, the prior 8 years it was over 2%. It ranged from 2.93 to 4.43.
Which year was it 4.43?
2013-14.
And how much banked cap or fund balance was used in that year to balance the budget?
I think I just have the percent. Yeah, I just have the percentage.
Okay. But there were years that there was 11 million, 8 million, $5 million available in the fund balance to move over to balance the budget.
Right.
Because it's not, the budget is not growing by a large percentage.
Right.
It is the revenue sources that are depleting.
Right.
And that is not a function of anybody on this board. This is a function of increased costs,
Right.
less revenue, less state funding that we anticipated. I
Right.
believe you anticipated us receiving 1.5 million, and we only received 1 million. And I know that caused another $500,000 deficit when you were trying to prepare the budget last week.
It did. So yeah, and we've, the surplus we've used in the budget before has been 6 million, 5 million. Like, this is the smallest amount that we have available to use to balance our budget.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. And just the one comment about last night's town council meeting, I believe there were 2 residents that spoke out. One was Mr. Fabiano, and there were several residents that also spoke in favor of it. The town council did do a bond ordinance. They approved to go out to bond for that, so that is not a 3% increase to the taxpayers in next year's taxes. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Raghu Chituri, Monroe Township. I think you already answered one of my questions about the 2% cap. How many times have we gone above the 2% cap previously? Oh, sorry about it. How many times have we gone above, over and above 2% cap previously? I think you already answered that.
Yes.
But question is, how many times did we go for voting, in a scenario where we had to go for a voting to approve the increase?
Ms. Allen?
I don't know that we have, not since I've been here.
We have not gone out to vote because we were able to balance that with the available banked cap and fund balance.
So basically, you had some kind of a surplus or reserve fund that you utilized it, and we ran
Correct.
out of.
There was a large fund balance for many years that was used continuously year after year to balance the budget. Now, if you can recall back to right around COVID, the board at that time was informed by the former BA that that fund balance was depleting and that it was going to be an issue in coming years. Then COVID hit, and I think the district received extraordinary money in ESSER funds that helped for the next year. But we are right back to relying upon the fund balance that has been used all these years to balance the budget. And as Ms. Allen said, the budget is not increasing. It is not a large increase to the budget. She has kept to pretty much everything that we had last year. There's no big increases. But the issue is, it's the revenue that we don't have coming in. And that is, part of it is the lack of the state funding that we're getting.
Yeah, a follow-up question on the state aid or funding that we are receiving. I reviewed a couple of Middlesex County schools, the other schools that we have, and there is a discrepancy in the aid that state is giving. It is changing every year. Like, you know, I think Edison this time got about 50% more. Likewise, East Brunswick had more. South Brunswick got less this year. Like, what changes? What is the criteria that changes the state aid every year? Like, why is it not consistent for Monroe Township? Like,
well, South Brunswick actually got a decrease this year.
Yeah, this year.
And they still get more money than Monroe Township.
From the dollar amount. Okay.
It's a calculation that the state uses. They have the funding formula. We have, many of us in this town, many of us on this board have been to Trenton. We've had meetings with our Senator Greenstein, and actually we had went, I think it was 2 years ago, we met with he's now the Commissioner of Education. He was the Deputy Commissioner at the time, Mr. Demmer. We sat down, we explained the inherent flaws with the formula, but that is what they continue to use. The governor, several years ago, put a request, or I don't know exactly what it was, a mandate, that the legislators create a funding formula task force. To date, that task force has not been created, and they have no plans on doing it. As myself, Ms. Ratner had asked that question not this past October, a year ago, from October, a year and a half ago, at the New Jersey School Boards Convention, asked Senator Gopal when they were going to create that task force, and we basically got laughed at in the room because their districts get a lot of funding. So there's not this big push to fix a formula that's benefiting certain districts. Unfortunately, we don't benefit from the formula because the way they calculate equalization aid is not favorable to us. We get $0 in equalization aid when other districts are getting millions of dollars. And, you know, it's unfortunate. You look at Hamilton is getting $25 million more next year for a total of $134 million in their budget. We have about 6,900 students. They have, I think, approximately 11,000 students. They don't have a huge disparity in number of students that they're educating, and they're getting $134 million in state aid. We're getting 12. So you want to, with the rate of inflation, with our decreasing surplus, with the little state aid, excuse me, can we please have quiet in the gallery? Excuse me, thank you. You can understand how it is. We would like to keep our programs and services. This budget does not cut programs and services, doesn't cut teachers. But unfortunately, for the reasons Ms. Allen explained, we cannot stay under that 2% cap.
Yeah, I mean, this funding formula has been brought up multiple times, but did anybody try to understand what criteria is used? I mean, what are the variables? Like, is it the population, or is it the tax that they collect? You know, unless we know the criteria that they are using, the variables that they are using for that formula, because it is changing continuously, right? It's not consistent. So something, we are not understanding the formula or the variables that are being used to calculate that. Unless we get to bottom of that, I don't know if you can fight whoever, like, you know, if you want to fight with somebody, like, you know, unless we understand that, we cannot fight back. I have one more question about the slides for the general fund budget, 2.42% cap, right? That's a 0.42 increase in the cap from 2%. On this next slide, it says for 2024 and 2025, the increase in the tax for average assessed home is $33.17 and $24.17. Is that for the 0.42 increase, or is it also including the 2.41 percentage that we are planning to, cut the, or think about the,
It's including the total.
including 2.41 in total?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yes, that increase is inclusive of the entire budget.
Thank you.
Prakash Purab, 33 Dana Drive. Just a simple question. With the budget going in April, we are voting. For the average house, we are asking $24.17 increase per year?
Yes.
Wow. That is good. That is good. That is excellent. That is, you look at this last table, 2.6 minus 1.6 minus 2, last 1 cent, 0.73. I think the inflation last 2-3 years in the country has gone up to 8%. And we are asked by the government to put 2% cap. The state budget, municipal budget, county budget, there is no cap. But to educate our children, put a cap. To give salaries to our teachers, put a cap. Something is wrong with the government. I think we have to ask our Trenton people, guys, in your house also, you can only exceed your expenses by 2% when the inflation is high as 8%. For me, it doesn't make sense. But I congratulate you all. I saw the candid discussion with all the BOE members sitting here, spend time looking at each item. I appreciate that, okay? So our message to the community is, for average house, we are increasing $24.17 per year. For $1 million house, it comes to around $80 per year. That is simple message. And our Apple Card School, is 80 years old. You got a grant, you asked for 10 million, the state gave 5 million. And our mayor and council members, state will give 5 million, because if we don't give, we lose 5 million. No, it makes sense. And yesterday, mayor and the council explained it. And my question is, this budget, our infrastructure is getting old. Thus, it takes into consideration the capital improvement we need for next year. I know we are getting 10 million. Okay, then I feel good about it. Now, funding formula. We know why we get equalization aid less. There are, in our New Jersey, if you look at township, most of the township have around 20% of seniors. And those township, get equalization aid. Our township, having 50% of the seniors, we are getting punished because the formula takes into consideration gross income of our seniors. They have already paid the taxes and all. The formula should not take into consideration gross income of our seniors. They can take their house values, which it relates to the property tax. That is where we have to educate our legislatures and get remedy on that. So we do understand where the correction has to be done in the funding formula, okay? Thank you very much. Good budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Parab. Is there anybody else wishing to speak? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Bob Valentine. I'm from Monroe Township. I just have two mechanical questions, and I apologize to the people in the room who are so much more well-versed. This is probably going to annoy them, but I apologize in advance. Could you just help me to understand the $10 million that was approved last night to town council? Does that ultimately work its way into the school district's books, or is that going to stay on the town? How does that get accounted for, if you will?
So the township approved, I believe it was $4.7 million of a bond ordinance.
Right.
we received 4.8 million through the ROD grant, roughly. And another $1 million through a resolution through the state budget last year for a resolution that Senator Greenstein entered in for Applegarth. I believe we did receive the 1 million.
Yes, correct.
In our.
Yes.
But if you want to explain, Laura, how the township's bond ordinance works for paying for the Applegarth school, because they're not giving us $5 million into our bank account, if that was the question. If you want to explain how that works.
Yeah, so as the projects start, and we will be submitting for reimbursement from the township. So they will not give us the money. They will, until we ask for reimbursement.
Right.
And that's how that will work.
Okay, and that's going to be spent during this period and 24, 25, is that what's expected?
It could go further.
Okay, so it'll be over a couple of years.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
Second question, just to clarify the discussion around the premium savings, because I was looking at the appropriations and trying to relate those two topics. Was this a cost savings or a cost avoidance? I'm trying to relate in terms of the budget. Like, I don't see a $6 million reduction, so I'm trying to figure out, better understand exactly in terms of the budget and how you budget and where the money moves around. How is that reflected here or not reflected here?
So the $6 million, I'm sorry, that was last year's budget. So that was last year when we had to either stay with our plan that we had, our insurance plan, and pay $6 million more, or move to the state plan.
Okay.
So we chose to move to the state plan, so it was just a lesser premium.
So in other words, was that already,
you're not
when you did the 23-24 budget, that was already contemplated?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now I just have a couple of quick comments that I think would help to understand everything better. And this is first really a question. So you compare the budget 23-24, 24-25. Do you expect the actual expenditures for 23-24 when it's all come said and done, that they're going to approximate this budget? Is that what's expected?
That's what's expected.
Okay. I only ask that because if for any reason we're either way off or way ahead or way behind, it's not that relevant to have that number in this. So I want to make sure I understood.
Yep.
Okay. And just a couple of suggestions. I didn't see anything about enrollment projections in the budget or anything like that. And the reason I asked that is one thing I would want to see is per student revenue, per student expenses, so I can understand how much more we're spending and things like that. And then the last comment, if you would consider maybe a one-page summary operating statement. You have a lot of detail on expenses, a lot of detail on revenue, but if it was a one-pager that kind of summarized the lines for everybody, I think that'd be very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. We appreciate your comments. Good evening.
Good evening. Pat Swalj, Monroe. My first question is under general administration, the first line that says salaries for 2024-2025, 457,000. Of that, if the superintendent's salary is included in that, that's almost 50% of that figure, a little less than 50%. What other salaries are included in that figure?
There are other people in these.
Well, I'm not asking for names.
Right.
Positions, how many positions?
Secretaries.
How many?
2 secretaries, and I think, and there's the I don't know, Sheree, the attendance secretary.
So 2 secretaries in the admin office?
Correct.
And the attendance secretary?
Yes.
Okay.
I think there's more than that.
There's more than that.
So the remaining about $230,000 would be these 3 secretaries?
I can look that up if you want.
I would like that, yes. While you're doing that, I have At the February 5th meeting about, I guess it was the strategic plan, a young man got up, well, not young man, he looked like a parent, and he asked a question about when the 2020-2024 strategic plan gets reviewed. I've heard a lot today about the impact of COVID on that, on the school board itself. So I'm not getting the sense from how Dr. Chanley responded to this person that, you know, you're looking at it at the strategic plan from 2020 to 2024. It's ongoing. It's a living document. I'm not getting the sense that you have regular meetings. So is this strategic plan, and especially after COVID, when Dr. Lehman said you had so many impacts from COVID, my guess or my hope would have been that you would have looked at that strategic plan and there would be something concrete, an action plan. Okay, COVID impacted these parts of the strategic plan, and this is how we're acting to rectify that or make up for that. So is that documented? Are those assessments that are ongoing? It's a living document. Are those quantifiable in concrete, you know, written action plans?
As I said, and actually specifically it was Dr. Lehman that made the comments regarding COVID, because that was before I came on as superintendent. I came on at when we'll say things were getting better COVID-wise. Not everything is quantifiable in numbers. Sometimes it's qualified, and sometimes it's regarding programs, so we're not adding up how many programs we have and then separating how many programs we have. For example, Dr. Lehman and I have had conversations that one of the programs was the SEL. So the SEL committees, and they do meet regularly, leadership meetings happen 1 to 2 times a month, and the conversations are always centered around all of the plans.
And in the strategic plan that's on the website and it's written, do you have written then action plans?
We do.
Okay.
So what happens is, and this is under Dr. Lehman's area, we have plans and who performs them, and then as we meet with our principals and our supervisors, depending upon what the area is, it's not all done by me or all done by him. It's all done and divided within the departments. And a lot of it will always be ongoing. So it might be looking at basic skills and tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 intervention. So that can be quantified by looking at how many children then exit out of those programs. How many children then...
I don't mean to keep interrupting you, Mrs. Chanley, but my question is specific. So are these, what you're looking at, are you developing action plans? And I know in your evaluation, in your contract, part of it was annual review, I guess. I don't know if you're, and I'm hoping that you are a part of looking at the areas that are already in that 4-year strategic plan that ends, I guess, this year. And over the years, because you've been in your position now 2 years, have you been having quarterly, specifically for the strategic plan, quarterly meetings or quarterly reviews? These are the areas where we need to change what we're doing, so here's the action plan on how we're going to do it. Because you do say that you're looking at it all the time, it's a living document. But if you can't refer back to something that you needed to address, how are you managing that?
Thank you. Your time is up. I think Dr. Chanley answered that question multiple times already.
I don't think she did. But Mrs. Skirby, you would
is up,
like
I'm sorry.
transparency and fiscal accountability. I'm just asking about that.
And I believe you got your answer.
No, I didn't, dear.
You did.
No.
I don't.
No, I did
You
not.
know, you may not like the answer, but an answer was given.
Well, the
Thank
answer
you
that
very
was
much.
given
Your
is
time,
that there's no
your-
action plans.
Yes, there is. I
Written,
believe she said there was.
quantifiable.
And she answered that there was. Good evening.
Good evening. Peter Pirro, Monroe Township. I just have a question. Are we cutting back on the summer enrichment programs? I see there's a big reduction in costs in summer enrichment, and I was just wondering if we're cutting back on summer enrichment this summer?
Dr. Lehman?
No, our plans are to maintain the summer enrichment program as is. It actually operates as a break-even / revenue generating piece. I don't actually have the breakout of what potentially may have been transferred out of that account. That's something Ms. Allen could probably provide context for, but the summer programs are planned.
Okay.
But again, we won't run them if they're going to operate at a loss. So we will, based on enrollment, run it break even or make money.
Okay, because a lot of it says supplies, this year, 28,000, next year, 6,000, a savings of 21,000.
Yep.
Minus 14,000 in salaries. So it's saying that this year, summer enrichment is going to be $36,307 less than last year.
So we do have a breakout. So many of the specifically robotics equipment is like a one-time purchase, which was realized
This year.
This year,
Okay.
which would not need to be purchased in a future year, unless there's program development. But we're anticipating not needing to expend that resource.
Okay. And then in the regular programs instruction, same thing. It says, what is other purchase services? It says that we're saving 481,000. What is that?
Ms. Allen?
Yeah, so that account includes a lot of things, a lot of technology license fees, internet, equipment repairs and such. The main reason that's down for next year is because of the iPad refresh that we normally do every 3 years. We're going to extend it out one more year, so we don't have that big payment next year for the iPads.
Okay.
So that is the biggest chunk.
Okay, and then instructional supplies, 131,800.
Yes. So that is mostly due to, I think Dr. Chanley mentioned, we just talking to, trying to get the principals, the schools, they really came together and cut supplies from the budget, some general supplies. We also are cutting down on toner. That's a huge expense in this district. So that is really the big chunk is the toner that's coming out of that line.
Okay, and then I see it says like unused vacation, pay term, so I guess that means nobody's going to retire next year?
Well, we don't know. We can't, unless we have it, we definitely know somebody's going to retire. We can't just guess. So typically we don't budget anything for that because we don't know for sure.
There's no time you could just retire? Like I know in the township when I retired, I had to give them notice so they could budget for money to pay your vacation and sick time, so we don't do that here.
Until we know somebody's definitely retiring, we don't have a number.
Okay. I don't know. We used all our reserve up now, correct? With the 2 million reserve this year, we have no more reserve?
No, we do have a small, I think it's 1.4 million or 1.5 million left in our reserve.
So if we're going to go over budget this year by, I take it it's going to be 2.4%, even though the paper app says 1.64%. I guess I only got the one paper, I couldn't find the other one. But my question is, if we're going over this year, how many million over budget are we going to be?
2.7 million, that's what we're asking for.
$2.7 million?
So it's $2.7 million.
So if we're 2.7 million this year, and
Mhm.
we only have $1 million left in reserve,
Mhm.
then the following school budget,
No.
are we gonna be 10 million over?
No,
Since
and
there's no reserve, and there's.
So, no, I'm sorry, that's what's in our unassigned fund balance, but we will have an amount set up for, we have 1.4 million in fund balance to go into the budget for this 2025.
Mhm.
At the end of this year, it will be determined how much of our fund balance, if there's any excess, would have to go into the following year's budget.
Is
the
And
27?
Can you explain the account? Because I know there's other monies in the
Yeah.
account that you
In
are
fund.
not allowed to put into the budget.
Yeah, so fund balance is made up of a lot of different items. So some of it, like capital reserve, we have a small amount. The excess surplus that has to be budgeted for this next year and the following year are separate amounts that we can't touch. The unemployment claims reserve is something we cannot touch unless it's for unemployment. And then we have the unassigned fund balance and reserve for encumbrances. So it's made up of a lot of different items, and a portion of it will have to go into the budget, but there are some amounts we just cannot use legally for any
Okay.
other purpose.
Yeah, I just find it bizarre that we've never gone over the 2% cap, and now we're gonna, which makes me think that the following year, we're gonna have to go over it again and again and again. And I'm sure, a lot of people pay high taxes here, and I was at the council meeting last night, and I only heard one person stick up for the budget, Prakash.
Mhm.
And the other people in the audience were all pretty much complaining and heckling the whole time complaining about their taxes. So I have a feeling from what I saw at the council meeting last night
Mhm.
of people sitting there, and it was a full house, more than I've ever seen.
Mhm.
And the majority of the people were complaining. They were complaining about the $5 million grant, and then after that, they just went crazy about the budget. So just so you know. All right, thank you.
I must have been at watching a different council meeting last night. But Ms. Ellen, could you again go over how many years we've been over the 2% cap?
Yes, I think it
Because
was
this
8.
is not the first time.
The last 3 years, it was 2%, and the 8 prior.
The last 3 years,
It was
we were up
2%.
to the 2%. Prior to
That-
3 years ago, can you explain what it was?
8 years, the 8 years prior to that, we were over the 2%.
So 8 years prior to 3 years ago, we were over the 2% cap. The last 3 years, we've stayed at the 2% cap. This is the first time in 3 years that we're going over the 2% cap. 8 years, we were over the cap. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that. Because we had fund balance, that the budget was being balanced with excess surplus and banked
Right.
cap.
And also, we don't have to.
Excuse me, can we please have quiet in the audience? Thank you.
We don't have to go to a vote if we have, for health adjustments, the healthcare adjustment or enrollment adjustments, that just automatically will get added to that tax levy. So those amounts did not have to go out for vote.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Poi.
Good evening. Doug Poi, Monroe Township. Some of my questions are just to get some clarification. What is the actual amount of the general fund budget for next year?
The general fund. 142,064,415.
Okay, and what is the amount of the separate proposal that the voters will be voting on?
I just had it. 2,769,586. Thank you.
Okay, and what is the total amount of state aid that we have been told we will receive?
For the general fund, we have, includes something else. that includes extraordinary aid. That's-
I think Mr. Poy asked
Okay.
for the total.
Well, the total categorical, general fund categorical aid is 12.27 million.
It is 12.27
12.27
million?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And that includes the categorical aid?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mhm.
I'm a little confused between what I see on the last page of this appropriations handout, where it says grand total all accounts, and it has budget amount of 154.7 million.
Mm-hmm.
And then it has the increase over the current year as being 1.64%.
Mm-hmm.
Yet when how does that 154 compare to this 142 figure that
So-
you just gave me?
Yeah, the 154 is the total budget. The 142 is the general fund budget. And then we also have the special revenue fund, which is 1,465,710, and we have a debt service fund budget of 11,191,171. That totals the 154.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
So if I add those amounts that you just gave me to the
Mhm.
142 million, I'll end up getting the 154.
Correct.
Okay, great. I appreciate that.
Okay.
My next question refers to, I guess it's sort of almost the next to the last page. And you have here that the general fund budget is, I assume, when you say 2.42% to cap, could you explain that a little bit more? I really don't follow what that's telling me.
Sure. So that would be the 2% of the 2%, the above cap, plus the 0.42 is the healthcare adjustment.
Okay, all right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I appreciate that. Now, the 2.41% that's shown in orange or gold
Yes.
on that same slide,
Uh-huh.
exactly what is that?
What makes it up?
Well,
Like, what is
it says 2.41%, so percent of what?
Oh, over cap. So that, if you add that, that's over the 2.42%. So it's another 2.41% to get to the total of 4.83% increase in tax cap, in tax levy.
Okay, all right, so if I add those two together,
Yep,
then the tax levy will increase by
the 4.83.
83.
Mhm.
Okay, great.
Okay.
On that same slide,
Mhm.
It says that the general fund budget it incorporates standard district operations.
Mm-hmm.
Aren't we currently providing courtesy busing and after-school busing and athletic transportation? So I would think that that's part of the standard district operation.
Okay, that is, those are non-mandated costs, so we don't, we're not required to include those.
Okay,
We don't have to provide those.
all right.
Well, and I think if I can add to that, one thing, I know when you were explaining to me how you got to these numbers, when Ms. Allen was adding it into the state program, you have to add everything to provide a thorough and efficient education. Anything that was above adequacy over the 2% is what she did not include into that initial number, because she had to keep to that 2.42% and ensure that everything that the state mandates for a thorough and efficient education was in there, because you're not allowed to go out to vote for something that the state mandates as thorough and efficient education. The items that are listed that we are going out to vote on are what the state of New Jersey says that districts are over adequate providing.
Okay, so essentially those things that are listed on the right side, retention of and additional on that slide there. Those are non-mandated programs or activities or staff.
Yes.
Is that correct? That then basically explains to me how they were selected. Because it almost looked as if they were selected to get a favorable vote, because parents want after-school busing, you know, and athletic and all that other stuff, and the clubs, et cetera. But it's actually because they're non-mandated programs. Okay, I appreciate that. Oh, my time is flying by. Okay. I do have another question. The board is scheduled to have a public hearing on March the 27th. What will be the purpose of that hearing? And can any changes actually occur based on the input of the public?
We are required by statute to have a final budget adoption of the Board of Education. And that is, Laura, if you want, Ms. Allen, if you want to explain that. The purpose is that we are mandated by the state to, A, have a preliminary budget presented to the board, which coincidentally, in the essence of transparency and wanting community input, we did not need to have a hearing this evening on the preliminary budget by statute. The board was to be given a presentation by the administration of the budget. The law does not require the public to have a public hearing this evening, but we feel that it is important to have our community give input into the budget. Thus, this is the hearing that we have right now is not mandated by the state. What is mandated by the state is prior to the board adopting the final budget, having a public hearing on that.
Okay, and my final question is, how are you going to share this information with the general public before they're expected to vote on it?
Dr. Chanley, if you would like to address that?
Certainly. So we've already began to build the website that will provide all of this information, the presentation from the budget philosophy, all of the numbers and all of the materials, as well as the resolution once it is read aloud and if it gets a favorable approval. So it will be accessible. We are going to come up with an FAQ sheet because we want to make sure the information is factual, that can be provided by all the principals. So perhaps maybe someone doesn't go on the website, but they do, their child is in Woodland, their child is in Mill Lake, Brookside, Blockley Brook, the middle school, high school, and they get the Friday updates from the principals and they get all that information. So we're going to try all the avenues to share out all the information so people can have their questions answered.
I know my time is up, but that somewhat excludes the senior communities
On the website.
because they're not going to go search the website and they don't have children in school. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd. Is there anybody else wishing to speak? Ms. Arminio?
Michelle Arminio, 9 Nathaniel Street. If we can go to the last page on the debt service. This is the amount of the debt service that we pay yearly, correct?
Correct.
What is the total, the principal balance of the bonds? What do we still owe on our bonds?
I can look that up.
Probably around 90 million still?
Somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. Okay, so 95,735,000.
95 million. Oh, it's
735. Yep, very close.
Okay, so yeah, because I always think that that's important that we know that we have a $90 million debt out there. Because it's a little bit, we think principal outstanding bonds, 8 million, approximately 8 million, and the interest in the outstanding bonds too. So really, we have a very large debt. Now, we are paying that down. I know at one point it was something like 140 million. That's good to know. But so really, if we calculate the cost of our budgets, we have a $90 million outstanding debt, and we also have approximately $150 million operating budget. So that's a yearly operating budget of 150. I just think that information, it should be clarified when we talk about, what we owe and what we actually go by. So also, I have to make mention of we always keep talking about debt service and state aid. For as long as I've been coming to meetings, which is almost from the year 2000, we have talked about and whined about not getting things from the state. I'm totally in agreement with that. I feel everybody's pain that says that. But the reality is, for all these years, we have not gotten our fair share. So we rely on 8.3% of state aid. We really have to start talking about the 84.75% of our local taxes. I think that's where we really should always concentrate. We can talk about the state aid all we want, and we should continue to talk to our legislators and go down there and fight for it, no problem. But the reality is, the people in the audience, the taxpayers of Monroe, are responsible for 84.75% of educating our children. They should be respected. I believe that that's a big issue. We should be heard. We should be respected. And, talking about state aid is just a diversion. We should really concentrate on what we do have control over. So I thank you, and let's see what happens to this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to speak? All right, seeing none, we will close the public forum on our budget presentation. Ms. Allen, do you have a resolution that you want to read?
Yes. It's a long resolution. Be it resolved by the Monroe Township Board of Education that the 2024-25 tentative general fund budget be adopted in the amount of $139,294,829, and a tentative general fund local tax levy in the amount of $117,447,992, and a tentative special revenue fund budget in the amount of $1,465,710, and a tentative debt service budget in the amount of $11,191,171, and a tentative debt service local tax levy in the amount of $10,909,834. Whereby the tentative 2024-25 budget totals $151,951,710, and be it further resolved by the Monroe Township Board of Education, includes in the budget the appropriation of surplus in the amount of $3,186,704. Whereas the Monroe Township Board of Education has been notified of state aid amounts, and whereas such state aid amounts are for 2024-25, the categorical special education aid is $7,593,810, and for 2024-25, the categorical security aid is $681,073, and for 2024-25, the categorical transportation aid is $3,999,704, and for 2024-25, the debt service aid is $281,336, And whereas the Monroe Township Board of Education has estimated a state aid amount pursuant to application, and for 2024-25, the estimated extraordinary aid amount is $397,484. And whereas policy numbers 6471 and NJAC 6A23A-7.3 provides that the Board of Education shall establish in the annual school budget a maximum expenditure that may be allotted for travel and expense reimbursement for 2024-25 school year. Now therefore be resolved that the Monroe Township Board of Education hereby establishes the school district travel maximum for the 2024-25 school year at the tentative sum of $165,500, and be it further resolved that the school business administrator shall track and record these costs to ensure that the maximum amount is not exceeded, and be it further resolved that members of the Monroe Township Board of Education authorize and approve a transfer of $400,000 of anticipated retained earnings from the proprietary Falcon Care Fund Early Childhood Enrichment Program as a revenue source in the 2024-25 general fund budget. And whereas due to the priorities of student and staff safety, maintenance of current programs, and staff and capital improvement needs, as set forth in the board's budget philosophy resolution, the board is budgeting to maximum spending authority. Be it further resolved that there should be a separate proposal to raise an additional $2,769,586 for general funds in the same school year, 2024-25. These taxes will be used exclusively for the retention of courtesy busing per NJSA 18A:39-1, students who live less than 2 miles in grades K through 8 and less than 2.5 miles for students in grades 9 through 12. After-school busing, athletic transportation, school-sponsored co-curricular / extracurricular activity expenditures, and school-sponsored athletic supplies and materials. The separate proposal also includes the addition of 1 autism teacher, 1 autism paraprofessional, 1 ESL teacher, 1 ESL paraprofessional, 1 business teacher, 1 technology education teacher, 1 security officer, design of roof replacement at Mill Lake Elementary School, and Phase 2 of special services parking lot refurbishment. Approval of these taxes will result in a permanent increase in the district's tax levy. These proposed additional expenditures are in addition to those necessary to achieve the New Jersey student learning standards. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the superintendent of schools and the business administrator / board secretary file the required documents with the executive county superintendent.
Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, so moved by Ms. Bilko, seconded by Mr. Tofano. Are there any questions? Ms. Ratner?
Yeah, just one follow-up. The part regarding the after-school busing and the extracurricular activities, is that based on the budget from what was involved last year? Because there were changes that were made this year where there were middle school clubs that had lost their busing if they were service or competition clubs. Would that be included if this were to pass?
Dr. Chanley?
I believe our calculations would be consistent with whatever we currently have in this year's budget.
I just wanted to know, is it what was in this year's budget that was approved by the board last year, or what we're currently doing that had to be modified in October?
Dr. Lehman oversees that specific.
What we're doing now, this year, so whatever transportation situation is happening right now, that is what was pulled out. So if we're providing transportation to the service clubs and it wasn't, we found space in this year's budget to make that happen this year, then that is included in this. That is included in this. Okay? So that would be pulled, in other words, that would be pulled out, right, as part of the second question. Whatever's in existence for after-school busing right now is a part of this additional proposal. Okay?
So if it's not there now, then it's not going to be something that would be added
There's nothing
with this.
added
Okay.
to this to be taken out, no. Whatever's in place now is taken out for next year as a part of the additional proposal. There's nothing added to it and then taken out.
Okay, thank you.
If I can ask a follow-up question to
Sure.
that? So whatever was taken away this year, what dollar amount would that increase a resolution by? Do you have an idea
For
for the
that?
middle school? We're already at 2.7s. What additional, would it be $50,000 additional or more than that? Do we have an idea? Just
So for example, if you say a service club or service organization, in the past, many years ago, a service organization, for example, like student council. Student council does not necessarily meet weekly. They're not, even though they're defined as a club, they're different because number one, they're a stipend position, so that financially they're not the same as a regular club. There's a financial position that's actually listed in the MTEA agreement. And second of all, they sometimes do ongoing activities, so they, in the past, never got on the buses because it might be once a month or once every 6 weeks. It's not a Tuesday, Thursday club. Then, when I was principal, I added it back in to allow them to get on the club. If you're saying that this year that was removed, and though that group of children, 45 children, 50 children, then they would not be added
Okay,
back
so
in.
these are not regular clubs that,
This is
the
not,
after-school
a
busing?
stipend,
Okay.
from what I'm hearing.
Well, I mean, I can speak to, my daughter, she's in Builders Club, right, which is a service organization. Last year, they were able to utilize the bus. This year, that was removed. So that's the reason that I became aware of this. If I hadn't had that personal experience, I may not have known. So I was just curious if, because it mentions the after-school busing, I wanted to clarify whether or not that was the after-school busing that was approved as per this year's budget when we voted, or if it was the modification.
Mrs. Gerber?
Ms. Belko?
May I just follow up with that? If my recollection serves me correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the reason we did that had nothing to do with money. It had to do with space and seating on the buses. Is that correct? Yes. So it really wasn't the budget. It was the fact that we had so many kids participating in all the other clubs and the regular clubs, Tuesday, Thursday, after school, that kind of stuff. That's why
You're
we
correct.
didn't do that. Thank you.
We had to do with the capacity of running the high school and the middle school buses simultaneously and having enough buses/drivers at the same time to transport the students home. So that was the impact of that.
Are there any other questions on the resolution?
I just have one comment if I can,
Yes.
Mrs. Kirby. So the way I understand this resolution is that it's allowing us to maintain our programs the way it is right now. We're not growing as a school district. We're not growing new programs. We're not growing. We are maintaining the need of our students the way it is, the way Dr. Lehman just explained. Whatever is here right now today, whatever our students are getting today, to continue to give them that in the next school year, we would need that special proposal to be accepted by the taxpayers. Otherwise, there will be those cuts to the program. And that's my understanding of this proposal.
Yes. Ms. Allen, do you want to?
Yes. That's correct. Mhm.
Does anybody have any other questions? Mr. Payne?
And for Ms. Allen, I know we talked about it before, but this budget that was presented to us tonight, you have to give it to Thursday to the state,
Correct. To the county, yep.
to the county?
Yes.
Okay, not to the state. When does it go to the state? The next,
It goes to the county.
just the county for
Mhm.
approval?
Mhm.
But there can be changes,
Mhm.
additions, subtractions,
Mhm.
everything in between? We
Yes.
don't- This is not something that's
Correct.
written in stone?
Correct.
Okay, that's why I wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions? All right, seeing none, Ms. Allen, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Okay. Ms. Belko?
Yes.
Ms. DePayne?
I'm going to abstain.
Mr. Tofano?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Gorham?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez?
Abstention? Abstain.
Ms. Fabiano?
Abstain.
Ms. Ratner?
At the advice of counsel, given what's incorporated in the second question, I'm abstaining.
Abstain. Okay. Ms. Bora?
Yes.
Ms. Skirby?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to call a 5-minute recess. Thank you. Continue with our meeting. The next item on our agenda is public forum for agenda items only. If there's anybody wishing to address the board, please come to the microphone. You'll have 4 minutes.
Oh, no.
Agenda items only. Yeah.
Yeah, agenda items only. Brian Fabiano, Monroe. So I just wanted to clarify, going back to the budget discussion, that's an agenda item, right? No. So since 2010, when the 2% cap was developed, and I think that was Governor Christie who put that in place. How many times did we go out to a public vote to go above the cap?
I don't, okay.
Well, I believe, Ms. Allen, you said, how many years did we go over the 2%?
That's not my question. I'll stop.
In the 8
That is
years
not
that-
my question. Let me rephrase it in the easiest possible way. Ms. Allen explained that there are certain things that you're allowed to go over cap on that do not require a public vote. Hence, the reason why we were able to go over cap the number of years that we did without a public vote. If that was still the case, we wouldn't need this public vote this month. So the question, again, how many times have we had to have a public vote since 2010 to approve a tax increase because we're going above cap? We're going above the cap. So you have 2.4 something that the state allows you to go over cap, and you want 2 something above that. How many times since 2010 have we held a township election to go over cap?
In the 8 years that we went over cap, we didn't have to go out to a vote because we had the fund balance and the revenue sources, so we did not.
So how many times have we had to have a public vote?
I said we did not have
So
to have
zero.
a public vote.
Zero, right?
We did not have
Okay,
to have
it's
a
okay.
public vote.
You answered, so zero.
In the 8 years we went over the cap.
Correct, because we were able to do it in a way that the state allows. But we've already done that now for 2.4 something percent, and we're asking for another 2.4 something percent because we can't do that. The state doesn't allow that without a public vote. So that, you answered my question. This is the first time since the state cap was put into place in 2010 that we had to hold a special election for the taxpayers to approve a tax increase to balance your budget. Okay, that was my question, and I appreciate you beating around the bush, but we got there. My next question, there was on here, under the purchase professional education, other purchase services, it says it's going down almost $500,000, 481,000. Could you explain that?
Ms. Allen?
Yes. Yeah, so under instruction, yeah, so that was the account that I spoke about where we are not doing the iPad refresh this year. So we normally do a three-year iPad, we purchase iPads for 3 years, and then we do a refresh. We're extending that to 4 years, so there will be no payment this year, which is typically about $500,000.
So what is the reason why we're not doing the refresh? Because we don't have the money?
No, I think.
Dr. Lehman, do you want to answer that?
It was something, as we prepared for a potential refresh this coming school year, I asked Mr. Feldman, our Director of Technology, to do an analysis of battery life, what is the current, if we purchase iPads, what's the current process they have in place, how much, how many years insurance can you get? Historically, we've done a 3-year refresh because the Apple Care insurance is a 3-year insurance program. Now, if we purchase an iPad, there's a 4-year program. We believe that has evolved because the iPads, their battery life lasts longer than the 3 years that it used to last, because our students are using them all day. So he's been monitoring all year. Battery life seems fine. He anticipates no issues with, and that's really the concern would be, are the batteries of the iPads going to last the entire school day next year? And he has no concern that that's going to be an issue. In terms of breakage, he's been monitoring breakage costs. And we have a small fund in here that would be used to repair any uninsured iPad, and that is cheaper than purchasing an additional year policy to cover all of our iPads in our inventory. So leading into, even before this budget conversation about going to cap and above cap, we were putting things in motion to take a look at how we refresh iPads. So the outcome is we're going to do one more year with this current set of iPads, and then we will look for a refresh. Like I said, it will be a 4-year purchase of the iPads, because now they're insuring their equipment for 4 years. Basically, that is a guarantee that it's going to last 4 years, which will benefit us in future budgets as well, because we pay for it over 3 years when we do a 3-year lease. We'll pay for it moving forward over 4 years. And that's something we'll plan for next year's budget.
So in terms of because I know we trade them in after that time period, what did your analysis show in terms of the depreciation, the loss of value because they're going to be worth less since you're going to have them longer? Yep. Give us a little idea what that calculation shows in terms of what the benefit is to us.
Sure, and we can have him present. So he did an analysis of even there's different model iPads we can get in terms of size and things. So we would get a little bit less on, we anticipate, again, it goes to auction, so it depends on the year how much we get. He anticipates getting a little less than we typically get for the buyback, but as we go to a 4-year refresh, and I think he said every 10 years, we save an entire refresh of iPads. So you're actualizing the entire purchase and again, I can have him share. Sure. So the benefit of extending to 4 years is much greater than the benefit of selling them 1 year early.
Got it. The 2023-2024 budget for legal services was projected at $233,000. What's the current year-to-date spend on legal services?
Do you have that figure with you, Laura?
I think it should be easy. That should be an easy account check.
As of January 31st, which is this report date, $86,724.
No, the full budget year, 2023, that you're giving this year.
I'm sorry. You wanted last year's actual?
Yeah, what were the actual?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I guess in the future, it would probably help if you had, actual spend here to where you are with the budget. You can't run me out, Zach. You can keep telling him to run the clock. He's not going to run me out. You should really not get involved. He's telling him to run the clock. That's not nice, Mr. Maralda. You should know better than that.
Ms. Allen, if you can get those numbers.
I will.
And get those to Mr. Fabiano.
I will.
Yeah, so I think the point is, she couldn't pull them, and I think you were probably nervous that she couldn't pull them. But the fact is, you budgeted in this current school year for about $225,000 in legal fees. I think you're well over $500,000 now. That's double. And you're showing a decrease going into next year. You have active lawsuits in court, and you're showing that the legal fees are going to be lower than they are this year. I mean, you're baking the numbers, folks. I mean, the facts and the data don't lie.
The facts and the data don't lie, exactly. We have our numbers, and we have our invoices, and we have our projections, and that is based on facts. Anybody else wishing to speak? This is for agenda items only.
Okay. This is regarding the budget only. So how many times we go for a freeze on miscellaneous purchases? Like in previous
A
years or
spending
in current
freeze?
year?
Dr. Chandler, would you like to explain that?
I'm going to speak as a principal. Prior to the last 3 years, every single year, we get notification from the prior batch of business administrator that we had a spending freeze. It usually was in October or November. Last year, I did not call a spending freeze. The last year before that, I cannot speak for Dr. Alvick prior to me coming on in November. I did not call a spending freeze. This is the first year that we called a spending freeze, and we did not call it until, I believe, February. Is that correct, Ms. Allen?
Correct.
In this handout, where do we see the insurances that we pay, like for legal insurance, the buildings insurance?
So that's split up into different accounts. There's some under general administration, under the other purchase services. There's some goes into the plant operations and maintenance account.
Okay.
Under other purchase services, or under insurance. Some goes into, actually on here it says employee benefits, which it would cover workers' compensation. So it's spread out depending on what the type of insurance it is.
Okay. But when we are uploading the budget for our reading purposes, can we get like little bit more detailed version of this, or we are getting only this handout on the website?
Ms. Allen?
So you would want a greater detail by,
Yeah, like now we are at like top level, like 1-2 levels only. Like, can we get like a 3rd level or 4th level? If you want to redact, like you can redact the names and personal information, PII from that, and then like we can have like little more details, like because of like just one gentleman brings up the lawsuits, and so before the School Ethics Commission found out like one clerical error, they vetoed down, or they throw down like 40 other cases. So for each 40 cases, we are paying copay of 5,000 for the lawyer. So that's 200K, right? So I just want to figure out like how it impacts our insurance increase also. We need to find out. So thanks.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to speak? Excuse me, that's inappropriate to harass people that have spoken at the podium. Excuse me. Mr. Selby, can we please have order in the audience? Mr.
That's Wal
Selby?
J, Monroe resident. I wanted to just go back to something that Dr. Lehman had said about the renovation of the office space at the former golf space. How much is that costing?
I don't have the exact figure. I think if I had to put a ballpark, it was a wash for this year's equivalent, what we would pay in the new lease for the upcoming year. So if I had to throw a rough number out, about $100,000. It's something we can get detail from Mr. Tague in terms of the exact breakdown. Most of the work is being done in-house. We did have our architect that's on record do an assessment to make sure HVAC is proper, and if we needed to upgrade to electric or anything like that, HVAC. But the anticipated costs were in line with what we would pay for the lease for the upcoming school year. So we would incur that cost, and then it would be set up for us to just maintain heating, cooling, and electric moving forward.
So that would be to move the admin offices that are on Buccaloo Avenue over to there?
So this is pupil personnel services, and they're currently housed in Monroe Commons, which is an office building that we lease office space for. So through the BG&T process, the lease company, or the owner of the building, provided us an updated cost, a raise in rent. Based on that raise, we looked for alternatives because the raise was, at the time, almost double, approaching double of what we were paying currently. So we were looking for an alternate place to house on a piece of property that we own. So there's, other than operational costs of heating and cooling, it would be our own property that we have them housed at.
And my apologies because I did not think that my question was answered. It's specifically on the strategic plan. Are there regular meetings of certain people, quarterly, monthly, just on the strategic plan and the action plans? So 2020 came, you knew COVID affected a lot of what was happening in the school district. So when you went, did you have a strategic plan meeting to readjust the action plans or the goals and outcomes, specifically in the strategic plan?
You want me to answer? Sure. So the strategic plan is on the website, and that's currently the version that we operate off of. I'll give you an example of a switch we made resulting from COVID. In there, we had one of the action steps was to do a diversity audit on our curriculum, on our resources. And we had money allotted in the budget year to incur and work with an external company to kind of participate in that with us. As we moved further and further away from COVID, we identified a need specifically at the middle school to support students in with their mental health. So we brought in, using that funding, which is one of our title funding opportunities, we shifted it over to address students' mental health, specifically at the middle school. We had students that were potentially going to be placed out of district, and they were impacted by school avoidance. We needed to get these students back to school. So the resulting actions of shifting those funds, pivoting from our strategic plan, and we met specifically to address that student mental health piece. So was it a strategic plan meeting? No, but it was a pivot to reallocating and readjusting that focus. And we were able to maintain those students, and we're looking to maintain that mental health process, but doing it internally moving forward. So that's an example of coming out of COVID, pivoting a little bit on the strategic action plan. There's other things embedded in the strategic action plan that involve partnerships with universities, dual enrollment courses, and that's embedded, and I'm sure you've heard us talk about that, and approving our partnerships with Rowan University, Keene University, University of Delaware, their Entrex program. So each one of our strategic action plans has outcomes, actionable outcomes listed on the strategic action plan, and those are our measurement tools. Are all those things happening?
And where is that, like, how do you document this is happening, that's not happening?
So the documentation is in our actions. Do we have an extra, are we going to put another column on that strategic action plan and put an X mark that it's accomplished? We could certainly do that and reformat the way we're going to do our strategic plan moving forward. But our actions, the board approvals, the construction project, whatever it is, embedded in that strategic action plan has outcomes defined in it. And as we accomplish those outcomes, that's evidence that we are accomplishing or moving these goals further out based on whatever financial situations we're in or needs arise.
But you're not, are you documenting that in that strategic 2020-24 strategic plan?
No, I explained that plan on there is the plan that was developed in 2020. We don't have another extra column we added on there to say it's checked off and completed. We certainly can do that, again, moving forward with the new plan.
Then if it's a living document that you are like working off of, how would you know moving forward what then you have to, okay, we did this, now we have to do that? How would you know that?
Because we engage with the document, we engage with the tasks involved in achieving those goals, achieving whatever outcome is identified as.
But who engages with that document then?
The entire administrative team, therefore engaging the teachers or students or whoever is appropriate based on those action steps.
So do you all, this is...
Yes, we meet monthly, that's what she's asking.
Yeah, okay. You're engaging and you don't have a line that checks off boxes, but pardon me, but your memories must be excellent, because how then, when you're going back to look at developing another strategic plan, how are you working off of a document that you're not doing that? This is a document that's obviously important to the state, because they're coming in here and coaching you guys. They did that last time, and they have this Miss Reese who goes around and helps you.
Let me correct you. I don't mean to interrupt you this time, but that is not correct. This is by choice. The strategic action plan is something that we have decided to move forward with. We are not required to engage New Jersey school boards. We made the decision, and it was backed by the board's approval of the expenditure to engage New Jersey school boards. And more valuable, a true living document is in its value in your actions, not in checking off. Checking off for compliance is a very easy thing to do. We go ahead and say we're going to do A, B, C, and D. We go ahead and say we did A, B, C, and D. We check it off and we move on. Rather than do that, we look at the value and the extension and the end result of what's going to happen. For example, we would like our children in middle-level education to aspire to go to four-year universities. We have the AVID program here, Advancement via Individual Determination, for those that don't know the acronym. And we look at what's happening. We then can follow those children, absolutely, and say, was this task met because X amount of children then went to a four-year university? One of the things on the strategic action plan is it was, and we did change it. We engaged Effective Solutions, which was this program that we paid. We took the money from the diversity that was supposed to go there because we had school avoidance in the middle school. The fact that those children, and off the top of my head, I want to believe there was 3, the fact that those children remain in our school district and are not out of district is what you're asking, is the check-off column. If this is an excellent, let's say it's a good recommendation. The strategic action plan, I was not the superintendent. So in the next facet of the strategic action plan, beginning on the 20th, perhaps when we come up with the actual document, we say, we'd like to add a column that says evidence provided, evidence of completion, evidence of failure. Maybe we did not pass it. So I don't know if that's what you're getting to, because I'm trying to be respectful to see what you're getting through. I'm not sure what it is you're asking. What we're trying to tell you is that we see an action, we see a requirement, we know whether it was successful based upon moving forward. Engaging, for example, every time the board approves another partnership, we just approved one with Rowan, it's a brand new approval. We know that in the area of the action plan that states to engage, to have an opportunity for our children to get post 12th grade credits.
So can
That's an action that's fulfilled.
So then, as just a citizen, John Q. Public here, or Patty Q. Public, that's trying to grasp, then why would the district even have a strategic plan if it's not going to be what is worked off of?
But it is worked off of.
But you're telling me you're doing these, like here and there, you're having these meetings and you're addressing things, but it's not, there doesn't seem to be any centralized in that strategic plan. Because when I'm going to tell you what started me on this, and in your February meeting when the gentleman came up and asked, what are the action plans that you have developed off the strategic plan? He was specifically talking about it because it was a meeting about that plan. And you mentioned that it's a living document, you're looking at it all the time, but it doesn't seem to me, it's just something that's there. It's like you're pulling a hat out of the closet and putting it on. It looks nice, you've got it, but it's not you're not working off of that, in other words.
I'm going to say one last thing, and then I will respectfully, I don't know what else to add. In order to properly work every single day within the school district with the first priority of the children, you have to have some sort of plan. You could call it anything you like. It could be a strategic plan. It could be a daily plan.
But is it? Is it the strategic plan?
The strategic plan that was created.
What are you calling it? The plan that you're working off of every day. What are you calling it?
Strategic plan.
Okay, all right.
I don't, you know what it is, and I'm going to respect your interpretation, but I'm going to leave it at the fact that it's your interpretation.
Well, if you're telling me you're working every day off the strategic plan, I'll believe you. But I don't know, the actions that are accomplished they're not getting in that plan. It's confusing. It's very confusing. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak on the agenda items only?
Peter Pirro, Monroe Township. I just have one question. So if we're not refreshing the iPads this year, we're saving almost $500,000, correct? But next year, we're going to have to buy new iPads? Is that correct?
Ms. Allen? Or Dr. Lehman?
Next year, we'll have to buy new iPads, correct?
Next year, we will refresh, yes.
Okay, so if we cut out $500,000 and we're going over the 2% cap, but now next year, we're gonna have to buy iPads, which I'm gonna guess are gonna be over 500,000, because like everything else, it goes up every year. I think that may put us in another hole.
Well, it's something that we plan for, and it's just like anything in the budget. You know, we are purchasing things this year that we won't necessarily have to purchase next year, right? So there's, like we talked about earlier, the one-time cost for the robotics piece, right? So
Okay.
there are purchases that happen that are long-term purchases that kind of ebb and flow and cycle through. Curriculum-wise, same thing. We bought textbooks. This year, there's a little bit of a decrease in textbooks.
Big decrease, 140,000.
Yep, and next year, we could be a flat, because we will be off a payment. We're on a 3-year payment plan for our math textbook series. This is the 3rd year of our payment. That payment will fall off, and we will add in potentially, and again, everything goes through the budget process. but
Okay.
potentially the science adoption. Those two numbers could wash each other out, right? So we have a looming.
Save money in one area, move it to another.
Correct. So the iPad piece, just to make a general assumption of, we have to assume that cost and everything else stays the same. There are things in there that are one-time purchases, but it's something we have to plan for, and that's why I asked Mr. Feldman, starting last school year, the beginning of last school year, to start looking ahead as what are our long-term plans for cycling technology through. There could be a reduction in purchases of replacement Chromebooks next year in that same account that would balance off the adoption of iPads.
So we use Chromebooks too?
We use Chromebooks at the elementary school.
Okay.
And in the middle school. Yep.
And then iPads when you get to the high school?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else wishing to address the board? Seeing none, we'll close the public forum. The next item on the agenda is our superintendent's report. Dr. Chanley?
Thank you very much, Ms. Skirby. So I just have some board action items. Under a 10-member vote, it is recommended the board approve the attached board action items A through B.
Motion?
Move. Second.
Are there any questions? Ms. Allen, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Ms. Belko?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez?
Yes.
Mr. Gorham?
Yes.
Ms. Ratner?
Yes.
Ms. DePayne?
Yes.
Ms. Fabiano?
Yes.
Mr. Tufano?
Yes.
Ms. Bora?
Yes.
Ms. Skirby?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Again, board action items, 9-member vote. It is recommended the board approve the attached board action items C through D.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Anybody have any questions? Ms. Allen, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Ms. Fabiano?
Yes.
Ms. DePayne?
Yes.
Mr. Tufano?
Yes.
Ms. Ratner?
Yes.
Mr. Gorham?
Yes.
Ms. Belko?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez?
Yes.
Ms. Bora?
Yes.
Ms. Skirby?
Yes.
Motion passes.
That concludes my report. Thank you very much.
All right. The next item on the agenda is our business administrator's report.
Yes, it is recommended that board action items A through B be approved by consent roll call by a 10-member vote.
So moved.
Second.
Anybody have any questions?
I
Ms.
have a
Bora?
question. Yes, thank you. Ms. Allen, I just want to confirm this resolution for the contract for Nelvie Transit is for drivers. We're going to use our own buses? Or this
We're
is?
contracting other buses. A
So
bus,
This is, are we contracting drivers and buses? Or
it's a bus company. It's another.
So they will,
It's
they will
it's
come
their
with their
buses and their
equipment, they will come with their
drivers.
driver. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, that's
Yep.
all.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else? Ms. Ratner?
Yep, just one quick question on the bill list, and it's kind of more of a general question, but I saw that there were a lot of larger payments for, I guess, extra services through Educational Service Commission. I was curious because I know that this has been an initiative of, trying to get students out of special education back in their home buildings and things of that. Are these services that are coming to the school, and then is this if we don't have the personnel at the school in order to utilize those services that we then have to go out for that?
These are services that that goes to that school is receiving. So we're paying.
I'm trying to find it now.
Yeah.
There was a whole bunch of them. It was right above the HACTIFA payment, which always boggles my mind.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm really bad with PCs. I mean, I can ask you next month. It's probably not going to be that different. It's just, I think, because the bill list was smaller, it stood out more to me this month. So, all right. Thank you. Yeah, they did find it. So it's, thank you. It's B61421 through B61431. It's not every single one of those. But I was just curious if it's out of district costs or if it's, because it says extra services, or if it's just services coming into the district.
Yeah, no, that's out of district, it looks like.
These are also
Educational, yeah, so they're at the schools, out of district schools. They would
Okay.
pay for extra services there.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, anybody else have any other questions? Ms. Allen, may we get a roll call, please?
Yes. Ms. Fabiano?
Yes.
Ms. Belko?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Gorham?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez?
Yes.
Ms. DePayne?
Yes.
Mr. Tufano?
Yes.
Ms. Ratner?
Yes.
Ms. Bora?
Yes.
Ms. Skirby?
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, that concludes my report.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is the board president's report. I just want to start out by thanking our town council for passing the bond ordinance last evening for the money to fix Applegarth School. I know we've been talking about it for quite some time. That money will go to replace a roof that continuously leaks, as well as an HVAC system. That is something that I know this district has needed to fix for over a decade, and unfortunately, we could not get the money for that. And I want to say thank you to the administration and Mr. Tague for going out and applying for that ROD grant. If it wasn't for that ROD grant, we wouldn't have gotten the additional $1 million appropriation in the budget last year, as well as the money from the township. So I want to just say thank you again. I want to thank Ms. Allen, Dr. Chanley, Dr. Lehman, and the entire district administration team for their countless hours putting this budget together. I know that you have worked tirelessly over months, and especially over the last 2 weeks. The amount of time that has gone into this has been incredible. So thank you for your commitment to putting together a budget for us that represents the school district that we want to maintain, maintaining all of our current programs and services that our students have. Unfortunately, Monroe does not get the state aid that our neighboring districts in Middlesex County gets. As we said, Monroe only gets $12 million for next year. Hamilton is getting an additional $25 million for a total of $130 million in aid. South Brunswick, who is seeing a decrease in aid, will still get more state aid than Monroe. Woodbridge is getting an additional $25 million of aid for a total of $127 million. Trenton City is getting $40 million more for a total of $377 million. Patterson is getting $54 million extra next year for a total of $583 million. Again, Monroe is getting $1 million more in aid for a total of $12 million. For the last 3 years that I've been on this board, I've stressed the importance of getting our legislators to listen to us to help us get more aid here in Monroe. We have a letter writing campaign going on where we're asking our residents to please send a letter to Trenton requesting that they create a fair funding formula task force that the governor has requested over 2 years ago and has gone on deaf ears. We need to stand together as one community to have our voices heard. I signed up this week to testify at the upcoming state budget hearings to have our voice heard. I do not know if I will be selected, but if I am, you better believe that I will be advocating for them to address our needs here in Monroe Township. Things like full-day kindergarten. The state gives money to many other districts around us for full-day kindergarten and full-day preschool. Not $1 comes here to Monroe. Parents and residents ask why we don't have full-day kindergarten, because we don't have the money. We need to have our voices heard. While other districts are getting our tax money that Monroe sends to Trenton, now we are faced with the uncertainty of having things like buses next year cut from our students. I cannot urge this community enough to vote on April 16th. Your voice is your vote. You either want to continue to have the same programs and services, or you want to see cuts. This board, during the budget philosophy, asked the administration not to make cuts to programs and services. That is what this budget presented tonight represents. Excuse me, you're out of order, ma'am. Excuse me, you are out of order. That concludes my president's report. The next item on our agenda is other board business. Mr. Tufano?
I just want to address something that Michelle Arminio had stated. I wish she would have stayed so she can hear me say this. She said that state aid is a diversion, that we're using state aid as an excuse. It's a diversion. It's a diversion, and we should respect the taxpayers of this town. I think everybody on this board, except for Gail, if I'm not mistaken, has children in this district. Am I correct? Everybody had children that went to these schools? Mm-hmm. We all ran because we want the best school district possible. We don't want to make cuts, and we all don't want to pay more taxes. I mean, there's a huge conundrum there. But something has to give. So, yes, she said state aid is a diversion. It's not a diversion. It's the root cause of the problems in this district. It's been the root cause of the problems in this district, not while Mr. Skirby was the president, not while Ms. Arminio was the president, not while Mr. Ryback was the president or Kathy Kay was the president. It's been the root cause of the problem in this district for years. 86% of the taxes we pay, we fund 86% of the funding in this district. That's absurd. We're the only district that does that. If you want to respect the people of this town, if you want to blame us for not respecting the people of this town, that's a lie. We respect the people of this town. Like I said, our own children go to the school. Who doesn't respect the taxpayers in this town are the people that are running Trenton. So if you're angry and you don't want to pay more taxes, you got to vote differently. You got to write letters. You got to email people that can change that 86 percentile to a much lower, like Hamilton's now. I don't know, what is their percentage going to be? I'm sure it's going to be a lot lower than 86%.
I'm sure.
But vote differently.
They're getting
It's
134
not,
million
We're trying to
aid.
keep the machine rolling here, and that costs a lot of money. We're not getting any funding. Be more effective on that end instead of coming here and thinking we don't respect you, because we do. This is part of our community as well. Thank you.
Ms. Reiner?
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Tufano, I think despite the differences that we've had on this board, I don't think there's a single board member who would say I haven't tried to advocate for fair funding. You know, and so I definitely understand what you're saying. At the same time, I would love for us, you know, and that's not to say that there hasn't been initiative to do so, but I saw that, you know, South Brunswick, they had a budget committee, and one of the things they did was utilize community members to look into different ways of increasing revenue. And I think that it's very similar to your own family, right? You obviously want to bring in as much money as you can from the sources where you should be getting it, but sometimes you have to look at side hustles and things of that nature. And while, you know, I'm not saying that we don't deserve far more than what we're getting, because we do. I would love for us to find ways, whether it's partnerships, naming. When I taught in Rahway, I had mentioned this to someone. Merck actually had a partnership with us because they have a huge headquarters there, which, you know, granted, our community is a little different. We don't have that, but they, you know, really did a lot with the science labs and things of that nature. So I do think while we definitely need to continue advocating for it, I would love to look into those things as well. And then I just wanted to follow that up. I wasn't actually going to say that, but I had the pleasure of reading at Mill Lake yesterday, and I'll be going tomorrow as a board member to read at Woodlands. I also did get the opportunity to watch our chamber choir and jazz band perform at the NJMEA conference, and they did fantastic. And I just wanted to share that one of my former colleagues that I taught with came up to me and asked if the chamber choir was a high school level group, because they were so impressed with the performance that they did. And so I said, no, that's my daughter right there. And then they're like, wait, you have a 12-year-old? And then we went into all of that. But they, you know, they did a fantastic job. Along those lines, I also wanted to congratulate the ice hockey team, as well as the female basketball player whose name I cannot remember who hit 1,000 points. Maybe someone else will know it, but
Haley Cottrell.
yes, fantastic. Looking forward to attending some events this month, the health fair at the middle school, the Mill Lake Night of Reading. And then finally, I just wanted to remind the board members, tomorrow night is the county meeting where Senator Gopal, who is a big name in this Education Senate Committee, will be there. And while that's not the primary reason he's going to be there, he's not talking about funding, he's talking about teacher retention. Well, you can retain teachers a lot easier if you have that funding, so it kind of all goes hand in hand. And then just the last thing, I had pulled it up when it was being discussed, and I don't remember who it was that asked, but last year the increase adjustment for healthcare was much higher than this year. So last year it was 15.1 less 2%, so a 13.1 increase was allowed for that healthcare. And then this year it was a 6.3 less 2% over your healthcare costs. So I figured since I had that, because I had looked at that when we were discussing the election change, which I did want to just finally mention that all it said in that, which is what we had sort of been talking about, was that on January 16th, 2024, Governor Murphy signed Senate Bill 4209 into law, eliminating the vote on school budgets for Type 2 school districts in April elections, except for the separate proposal to spend above cap, modifying dates for board reorganization meetings, and clarifying the term dates of school board members that are elected. So it mentioned the bill, but it didn't mention the part, because when I saw it, I said, oh, well, this isn't really going to affect us this year because we were planning to go above cap. So I did just want to share what was in there.
Thank you, Ms. Ratner. And just something that you had brought up with the community sponsorships and looking out. I know this year has been a initiative of the administration, and they have been going out. We had our robotics competition. I believe that was sponsored, as well as some of the other events.
Entrance Club competition.
Yeah, we've had several competitions and events. The women's, I forget what that was called. The Women's Leadership had a sponsor. So a lot of programs that we have been bringing, and I know it's been being discussed at the committee level as well. Yes, the cooking was just sponsored by Ms. Kumar's Kitchen. So I know with the new position that Dr. Chanley created for innovative programs, that has been an initiative going out and getting various sponsorships. So I think we just said 5 or 6 off the top of.
There's going to be a full report provided at the Finance Committee this upcoming meeting.
So I agree with you that we have to keep looking at those partnerships in our community to bring people in. And I think we've been doing a fantastic job of actually engaging in different community members that want to sponsor these programs. So absolutely. Does anybody else have anything? Mr. Gorham?
Yes, I also had the opportunity to go to Woodland School for the Read Across America program, which was a nice blast for the past for me. I had taught there for about 20 years, and there were still some teachers there that I had taught with. So I had the pleasure of reading for a 4th grade class, Mrs. Emmons, and also Mrs. Growl's 5th grade class. And I was very impressed with the overall condition of the school, how it looked aesthetically. It was nice. I was met by, as soon as I went in, I've been subbing in the Obert school system, so I have a sense of different security in the way they do things. And I was greeted by our security guard, very professional. Even though he knew who I was, I still followed the procedure, which was nice. I went into the library, which still looks the same as when I taught there. And it was really nice to see children reading. I spoke to the media coordinator, and she doesn't set a limit to the amount of books that the kids can take out. So I said, what, a 4th grade, 5th grade kids, you have kids coming in taking out a lot of books. And she said, yeah, regularly they have students coming in taking out 8 and 9 books at a time and reading them. So I thought that was awesome. So it was a really nice program, and I'm glad. I know Shari was down there, and I know Chrissy and a lot of other board members are going this week to do that. It's just a really nice experience. To piggyback a little bit on what Pete said, I want to thank Mrs. Allen and also Shari for the budget, and it's a lot of hard work. And we talk a lot about money and we talk about things that we could get and should get and all this other stuff, but unfortunately, we have to deal with what we have. And this is what we have. And in order to continue a good school system costs money. A good school system where students' needs are being met costs money. We have an excellent school system here in Monroe, but it costs money. I'm a taxpayer as well. If you told me at the beginning of the year I could continue to have an excellent school system and it's going to cost me an extra $2 a month, I'd say, where do I sign up? $2 a month, $24 a year. What are we arguing about? Okay, it's a no-brainer. Okay, the amount of effort that goes into this. Also, Mr. Payne, you brought up at our last meeting about communication, and I couldn't agree with you more. I guess one of the biggest surprises of being a board member was just the overall feeling you get when you're at a meeting. So I'm the youth coordinator for the Elks. So with that, we have meetings and we have things, and I would leave those meetings and I'd always feel real good about myself. And tonight I'm feeling pretty good, but a lot of meetings I would leave here and I wasn't really feeling good, okay? And I wasn't feeling good not because there wasn't communication, but because there were attacks. We can disagree. I can vote on something and you can disagree with it, but you don't call people names, okay? It's really amazing to me that that happens in a public forum. And I thought tonight was a lot better. It was really nice to get someone that actually said, hey, thank you. Thank you for your efforts as volunteers, which we are as members of this board. We're volunteers. And I know everybody on this board has other jobs, they work really hard, and they put a lot of time into this. And they do it out of respect for the children. There's no agenda. We have no agenda other than doing what's good for the children. So I thank you for your efforts.
Thank you. Ms. Belko?
Yes. So I kind of agree with everybody here. I do want to say, because you've all said so many things, I kind of lost my train of thought. But I do want to thank the administration, from Dr. Chanley, Dr. Lehman, Ms. Allen, and all of the principals and building supervisors. This has been a long journey, right? You started this back in October, budget rounds, defense rounds. This takes a lot of work to put this together and to really look at what we're doing, what we're not. And like my colleagues, Ms. Boris said, we're not adding anything. We're not adding any programs. We're not adding anything extra. We've put into the second, but there's no first question, question to the public to continue the courtesy services that we're doing and to add additional teachers for, that we need in order to cover the class offerings and the things that we want to do and to keep our class sizes reasonable for our teachers so that our teachers get what they need and are able to educate our children without elbow-to-elbow classrooms, right? That becomes, that's a big part of what we do. And so I just want to thank you for all that hard work. It came out tonight in all of these documents that you shared with us. I also wanted to say we're having a great sports season. We've really, Ms. Ratner talked about our female basketball player. We've had hockey. We've had cheers just out there. Sometimes I can't keep up with the good news on Facebook about all the great things that are going on in our districts. The robotics club, that was really awesome. And some of the curricular and co-curricular activities that I'm just so proud to have chaired that committee for the last 3 years. That will be one thing I will miss. Come May, I will miss that. And collaborating with Dr. Lehman. I also did read yesterday at Woodland School. It was kind of nice to go back there. That's where I first met Dr. Lehman. He was the principal of that school when my children were going there. But it was really nice to go in and read. I was very thankful that I had the opportunity to at least go in once. I wish I had more opportunities to go and read more because it really, it's the nice part of this role, right? It's the cookie you get for the volunteer hours and the time that you put in. So I really do appreciate that. And I just wanted to touch a little bit on what Mr. Tufano talked about, and the 86% of our budget is paid for by the tax people of this town. And we do respect you for that. We do respect you for opening up that and continuing to support us for that and continuing to be part of that. And I thank you for that, because without that, we would not be able to provide the services and the schools that we do provide. And believe it or not, people move to this township because of the education we provide. They move here because we have top-notch education. I belong to some groups that are out there and some schools that are out there, and I have had, 22 years now with the special ed department in this district, and my children would not be where they are today if it wasn't for the incredible education that they have received from so many teachers in this district. And I hear horror stories about what happens in other districts that are not too far locally from where we are, when I hear some of the things that happen, I'm just aghast, because I know, having been an advocate for all these years, that you have to be an advocate, you have to keep watching, you have to keep, questioning, and you have to keep, making sure that you're letting people aware of what's happening. But we have a second to none education that we deliver here. And to do it with a budget that is only what we're at is amazing, first of all. Some of those districts Mrs. Skirby talked about are getting more money from the state for their budget than we actually have in our entire budget. So, and we, almost 7,000 students, right? That's pretty much where we're at. I don't have the numbers, but I just wanted to say to the public, I thank you for making sure that we can provide the best education in Middlesex County, and I'll even go to say the state of New Jersey.
I have Ms. Sabora.
I want to ride the wave of reading to children. Honestly, that is a privilege as a board member to get invited. I was at Woodland today reading to a 5th grade class, and it was truly the highlight of my day. Something else would have been the highlight, but we didn't just make it. So the unified basketball team represented Monroe at the state semifinal round today, and in Florence, they lost, but they're champions for getting there and for playing the way they played. From what I hear, we truly played a unified game. There are some rumors the other team might not have done that, but we always play unified, and so proud of those athletes, proud of those partners, and glad that we got that feather in our hat again this year. I want to bring the conversation back to the budget. Thank you so much, Ms. Allen, Dr. Chanley, Dr. Lehman, all the administrators that have worked hours and months on this. To reiterate what I said, we are maintaining the education that Monroe Township students are currently getting. We are not growing, and even to maintain that, we are at a point where we have a proposal question. So I just want to take a quick trip down memory lane. When this board voted to move the elections from November to April, it was because we had been advised that we will have to go over the 2% cap on tax levy. I know somebody brought this up a few times. The 2% cap on tax levy is different than what we are, us being able to use surplus and still stay within the 2% cap. We don't have surplus, so we're going over 2% cap. So we were advised that's going to happen, and the only way we would be able to have a budget that is within the 2% tax levy cap would be by making cuts to programs or bringing the budget out to a public vote in April. It could not be done in November, because in November, you only vote for the present year's budget. You cannot vote on the next year's school budget. So for 23-24, if we had something that we were not able to fit in that budget, that's the only thing we could have voted in November on. So if we had, can I please have my moment? If we had not moved the elections to April, we would have had to approve a budget, a preliminary budget tonight with cuts to programs. Whereas where we sit today is that we have the option to ask our taxpayers, and I come back to that 84%. Yes, 84% of our budget is being supported by the taxpayers, and we all here on this table are also taxpayers. I ask everybody to put their political agendas, their vendettas, their anything aside and just think of students today, this question on the ballot on April 16th is going to impact the students of Monroe. If we do not come out and support the needs of the district with that $2 a month on an average assessed home tax increase, we will see chaos in terms of courtesy busing, programs lost, parents having to pay hundreds of dollars out of their pockets for their kids to be able to do after-school activities, which is much, much more than $2 a month. So my ask now is that whatever we did in changing the election date was not wrong if you want to think about the students and the state of education in this town. It is better that the taxpayers decide that and not the board members that we are going to cut programs. Districts in our neighborhood have gone ahead and cut programs, just the board on their own without asking the taxpayers, and there has been an uproar. We wanted to give that decision to the taxpayers because you know what, if today we were proposed a budget, we had no choice but to accept it if we were not going out to vote. We would have had to accept the budget with those cuts, and that would have been final on March 27th. There would be no courtesy busing, there would be no athletic transportation or after-school transportation. But as it stands today with the change election, we are voting on asking the taxpayers to make that decision, and whatever the taxpayers decide is going to be the future of the students in Monroe. So my ask, and I please everybody, thank you to everybody that came out today to hear the budget presentation and find out what's going on. You all took time out of your day, and that shows your involvement. For people who are watching online from home, thank you to you as well. I wish more and more people will watch the recording, see the budget presentation on the website. Let's all educate ourselves. Let's ask the questions directly to the administration, not get our information from Facebook and personal posts, and then make a decision on April 16th about our students. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ms. Alvarez?
Hi, I wanted to piggyback on a conversation we had in January during other board business. It kind of ties into the budget discussion today. We had talked about possibly, and it seemed like a lot of people were on board with this, doing a feasibility study to see what the impact would be of combining Jamesburg and Monroe. And I remember Vito talked about it, that there's grant money for it, it doesn't cost us anything. And I was just wanted to follow up on that to see if there's been any discussion from administration, if that's something that you want to pursue, because the deadline is in April to apply for this grant.
I'll yield that to Ms. Scott since she's our Jamesburg representative.
So, we've discussed this amongst it was discussed amongst our board members as it came up. There was a presentation a couple of weeks ago that Rowan held. Actually, our business administrator was actually one of the Dr. Brian Falkowski was one of the presenters. I didn't go to it physically. I listened in virtually as much as I could. So we got some information out of that. There was a couple other, I believe our superintendent attended it as well as our board president. So we have decided to, when we work on our board goals it'll be sometime this summer, to further discuss it. But it's something that a resolution, from my understanding, has to be decided between both districts. So it's not something that we can just pass. It would also have to be something that this board would have to pass. And then one of the districts would be the one to take the lead. So one would be the primary. So there's still more information that I'd like to get, that we'd all like to kind of gather and discuss further. It's something definitely that I think would be beneficial to all of us as
Yeah, because I also heard that there wouldn't be any penalties, like for example, you get more state money than we do, but they wouldn't take any money from you. You wouldn't be penalized for doing this.
From my understanding, yes, that is correct.
I was going to say, Mr. Gagliardi, I think if I recall, you had seen this in a district recently that had merged. Am I imagining?
No, you're not imagining it. I mean,
okay. I was curious what your experience was with that, the ups and downs.
We were consulted in the creation of the actual law, so I'm very familiar with it. So
you know, the state's been talking about regionalization for a long time. But this bill is really the first time they've created some significant financial incentives in terms of paying for the study, ultimately the issues decided by the voters, paying for the special election, and to the last point you're making, holding you harmless, because there's some odd grants out there and some odd pockets of money that only certain types of districts are eligible for, that if you merge, you may lose that eligibility, and they'll hold you harmless on that. There's no obligation if you do a study that you actually have to implement what the study suggests. The only obligation is, as Ms. Scott pointed out, both boards passing a resolution demonstrating that they're ready, willing, and able to take on either a sending or receiving or regionalized role, depending on what the study shows. But all they have to do is express an open-mindedness as opposed to making any commitment before any analysis is done. So if you were to pass such a resolution and get the grant, you do an RFP for people to do the study. The process, depending on the level of availability of information and the cooperation of the districts, would take 3 or 4 months. Then the study is released, and then the boards can make a decision based upon the analysis and the recommendation of the experts. So that's generally the process. I don't know the date in April, but I know the deadline for this round of grants is in April. You know, obviously don't know if the state will fund it again next year, but this has been a pretty consistent process in the little more than 2 years since this new statute became law.
Mr. Payne?
Thank you, Mr. Tufano, for reminding me that I'm the only one that doesn't have a child in this district. I've been involved in children's education, making sure they've had wonderful educations for over 20 years, some including my children, who I have a 47-year-old daughter, and my twins will be 44 tomorrow. And I have 2 teachers and a nurse out of a wonderful public school education of which I was a part of their education. And I'm a part of all your children's education, sitting here tonight and sitting out in the public. And I come to everything that I'm supposed to. I don't say anything. I just make sure that the public knows what's going on. I'm reading tomorrow at Woodland. I read in New Brunswick the other day. If they would have allowed me to read wherever I go, I go. Okay, fine, I'm retired. But I'm very busy in other organizations within the town, within the county, within Middlesex County, in Middlesex County School Boards. So I'm here for all children. I've always been since I first became a board member, and I always will be until I end being a board member. And I just wanted everybody to know that I care about all of your children tremendously. I have 5 grandchildren, and 1 is in Howell and 1 is in East Brunswick. And I'm grateful for those districts who are educating my grandchildren, because when they come and correct me with their homework, then I know they're doing a good job. So I just wanted to tell you that I care for everybody's kids, and I will continue to do that for years. Thank you.
Yeah. Gail, just so it's seal's done. I just want to let you know, I didn't say that to insult you in any way. I apologize if you
Oh,
took
I
it that
understood
way.
that. I just
Yeah.
wanted to reiterate to you how long I've been doing it.
Yeah, well, I want to apologize. I don't want you to take it the wrong way. That's not
No,
how I meant it.
I didn't take it the wrong way.
Okay.
It's just late, and I just wanted to reiterate how long I've been caring for children in districts.
I didn't mean to demean you in any way.
No,
I appreciate your board service.
I didn't take that. So no apologies necessary.
Ms. Ratner?
Yep, I just wanted to ask a quick clarification. For the strategic planning meeting, do board members need to RSVP as private citizens, or are all board members included as members of the board?
I believe that we cannot have a quorum at that meeting, so if any board members would like to attend, reach out to me and let me know, and we'll figure out.
Yeah,
You can't.
No, you cannot have a quorum. She said
can't?
you cannot.
It's not a public meeting. right? It's not a, we'll have
It's
to
not a
follow-
public meeting,
yeah,
right.
We'll have to follow sunshine law. But if everybody RSVPs, and then the first come, first served board meeting.
And there's 3 meetings, so we had talked about,
Now, Kate,
excuse me.
Kate,
you're-
we're gonna miss you, Kate
Excuse me,
Belko,
excuse
Sunshine
me. We are trying to conduct our business, and this is about the 15th time you've interrupted the board. It's really inappropriate. Thank you. We had said when Ms. Reese was here that we would, since we have 3 meetings, we could split it up amongst the board members who want to attend. So if everybody wanted to attend, everybody gets to attend 1 meeting.
Can you ask tonight how many people want to attend the first one and see?
Well, you know what,
Yeah.
why don't, whoever wants to attend, email me.
Just
I'm
email
sorry?
you? All right.
I'd like to attend the first one since I
See,
won't
she's
be around for the
she's
rest.
saying it. Why can't I say it? Do I have to email you still?
Whoever would like to attend, email
Kate,
me and
you have
we'll
to
figure it
email.
out.
You have to email, hon.
I think I got her.
All right, the next item on the agenda is our public forum. Anybody wishing to address the public, please come up. You have 4 minutes. State your name and municipality.
Good evening, Pradeep Melam, Monroe Township. So my first question is like, on April 16th ballot, so there will be only one question with yes or no, or you are going to give multiple options, which programs has to be there or which programs are going to cut?
Yes, there will be 1 question.
So it
A
will
yes
be
or
only
no.
one question, yes or no? Okay. I have a comment on certain board members. I understand some bill list you can abstain because of conflict of interest, but it's budget, okay? Unless Ms. Ratner has some conflict, others has to gather their courage and straight up the spine, say yes or no, and tell the reasons why you are abstaining or why you are saying no to the voters that were elected by you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You said it was on the advice of council. Do you want me to repeat it? How about that?
Closed session.
I can if you want.
No.
Okay, I'm leaving. I don't want to deal with these. Yeah.
I'm Sarah Aziz, and I live in Monroe Township. This afternoon, I was shocked to receive a bill in the mail in the amount of $3,000 from Lifestyles magazine. The services listed on the invoice were ad inserts for the campaign ads of Board President Chrissy Skirby and her running mates. While my contact information was listed, I found it even more concerning that the invoice was addressed to the Monroe Township Board of Education. Why does the name of our Board of Education appear on this invoice? This looks like evidence that shows that the board president might be using taxpayer funds for her campaign materials. This invoice,
Mrs. East, I'm going to have to stop you
Why?
right there.
This
Mrs. East,
invoice should have been
Mrs. East, I'm
addressed to
going have
you,
stop
your
you.
running
Mrs.
mates,
East.
or your campaign treasurer.
Mrs.
Instead,
East,
it was
I'm
addressed to
going
the Monroe Township Board of Education.
Did you contact the Lifestyles magazine?
They said they searched for Monroe Township Board of Education, and my name came up. Why would it come up?
Why
It never
would it?
worked.
Right.
Exactly.
Perhaps because when you
Why
lost
would-
election twice when you were running,
Yes.
and you put in ads, that was the address they had for you.
But why
I
would
don't-
your name be put up? Why wouldn't you say, I'm Chrissy Skirby, this is my address, please send me the bill here? Why would you say Monroe Board of
I
Ed?
have my bill, and it is addressed to me. Mr. Selby, you need to please get order in our gallery now, because this is it is inappropriate behavior going on.
I never told them that I worked for the Board of Ed, so I don't know why I got
Well,
this
maybe you
invoice.
should call them and have a conversation with them, Mrs. East, instead of coming here with your false accusations.
I mean, it's here. I have a bunch of your stuff.
Did I mail that to you?
They did, but why would they mail it to me?
I don't know, Mrs. East. You have to take that up with them.
Why does the Board of Education appear on this invoice? It should not appear on this
I
invoice.
don't know. Maybe you should ask them that.
It
I
would
don't
only
run
appear
the
them if
Lifestyles
somebody
magazine.
told them it was a board of expense.
No,
I mean,
that is a false accusation.
Can you
That
show
is
us-
a false accusation.
Can you show us a receipt that shows that this was paid for by you or someone in your campaign?
That is not board business.
It'll be in your elect
You
form.
can search the elect form when it's public. Yes, absolutely.
But there won't be receipts on that. I mean, how do we know that this was not paid for by the board? Because the board appears on this invoice.
That appears to have gone to you, Mrs. East, not the Board of Education.
It says Monroe Board of Ed. on the
Mrs.
bill.
East. With your address.
But I never worked
You
for the
ran
Board of
for
Ed.
the Board of Mrs. East.
But I never identified myself as working for the board or a representative of the board. So why would it appear?
Thank you
Years
for your
later?
comments, Mrs. East.
Board of Ed race, that's what you ran for.
You ran for the Board of Education. It has your name with Monroe Township Board of Education.
So you should pay your bills.
Peter Pirro, Monroe Township. First off, I think maybe that if she received a bill addressed to the Board of Ed, maybe somebody should investigate it
Yeah.
to see
Let's
why
have
it
an
happened,
investigation.
especially if it's addressed to the Board of Education.
Yeah.
My first comment. Secondly, Mr. Gorham made a good point before about a tax and everything. Everybody pretty much knows I'm running for the Board of Ed, and I've been attacked nonstop with lies from Mr. Tefano
No, never.
on a page created by Ms. Skirby. Mr.
No, it was
Tefano-
not. Again, Mr. Pirro,
The watchdog
I'm sorry,
was
I'm
the
going
watchdog
to...
created by Ms.
No, it
Kirby.
was not. No,
Well, I
it was
have
not.
people
No,
that-
excuse
okay.
me. I am not going to
Okay.
allow this board and board members to
Okay,
be
well, you're going to
falsely
hear me
accused.
speak now because it's
No,
my turn.
Excuse me.
It's my turn to
No,
speak.
our board...
Your board,
no,
Mr. Gagliardi,
excuse me.
we've had this conversation. Am I
Mr.
allowed
Gagliardi,
to speak?
can you please say that our board policy mandates that we have to have a decorum in this board. We are not here to insult or accuse or attack members of this board or administration.
You're right, I'm not attacking. I'm the one being attacked. There's been a lawsuit Mr. Tefano's put up, Monroe versus Martin, numerous times. Here, would you give this to Mr. Gagliardi?
No, excuse me. No.
This is the conclusion of the lawsuit that he should read. Maybe if he read the whole lawsuit, he would see that the lawsuit was thrown out without prejudice, every single part of it, by a judge. So he keeps posting on Facebook. My attorney asked me if I brought it up to the board attorney, and this is the third meeting in a row I'm bringing it up, that a board member is slandering my name on Facebook. I would like you to read
I'll
this.
take it. It's public
Yes.
information.
If you read the whole thing, you would have
public
all the
information.
Excuse me, Mr. Pirro. You are out of order. Yes, you are.
Actually, you should ask
No.
Martin if you had order.
What? Why don't you read the judge? Why don't you read what the lawyer said?
I don't have to read that.
You're right. Keep going,
Public
Peter.
information.
Keep going.
Public information.
If you're going to put the whole truth, Mr. Tefano.
Information.
That's good. That's good. Maybe Mr. Gagliardi will explain to you what defamation of character is. Okay? Ms. Skirby, you can't keep order, your board people? I thought only I addressed the president. Why is he arguing with me?
I'm sorry, you were yelling at him?
I'm not yelling. I'm talking.
Do you have anything else?
I would like to know, is this allowed to continue, Mr. Gagliardi? These false allegations, if Mr. Tefano read the whole lawsuit, he would see it was thrown out by a judge. I did nothing wrong.
So-
Somebody made allegations that were tossed by a judge.
So all I have here is the conclusion page, and I honestly don't know anything about the litigation.
Well,
but
ask Mr. Tefano. He could give you the whole thing. He posts it on Facebook every day.
I am happy to read it and to be able to describe exactly what you want me to describe, but I can't just from this.
Okay. My attorney asked me to bring it to your attention since the attacks are continuing.
So where was this lawsuit filed?
It was filed in 2010 when I was a police officer. On a case. You can read it. It's 135 pages long.
I've read long cases, but so where was it filed? I'm going to look it up. That's why I'm asking you.
In Monroe Township.
It was filed in it was filed in the county court.
So it was Middlesex County?
Yeah, it was a civil complaint.
Okay, well, and what's the caption of the case?
Martin versus Township of Monroe.
And you said it's a reported opinion from 2010?
There's a decision by a judge that the whole case was tossed without prejudice, if you read the conclusion.
Trial court.
Excuse me?
It's a trial court decision from 2010?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
But that is repeatedly posted on numerous Facebook pages. Taking my bio and putting it across the top, trying to incite riots, trying to incite African-American people against me. I find it ridiculous. My partner was a black female for over 12 years. Why don't you go ask her, Peter?
What was her name?
Lisa Robinson.
Oh, didn't she sue the township for racism too?
I'm sure she'll be.
Sexual discrimination, racism.
So is the Board of Ed.
Yeah, well, those are all facts. Don't let facts hurt your feelings.
Let him answer.
Here comes his boyfriend.
Excuse me? So it's quite obvious tonight that you don't have respect for the public, because it's the same thing, meeting after meeting. And I'm not sure you even have respect for our children. And I know you knew this was coming, so I'm going to read it. And I know that you know the state law, and you know how schools work, and you know that every child is offered an opportunity. Ms. Skirby is well aware of Ms. Scott's recent comments.
Excuse me?
It's
sorry.
my time.
No,
Excuse
I'm sorry.
me.
No.
Excuse me.
No.
I'm a member
No,
of
I'm
the public.
sorry. Excuse me.
Ms.
You are
Skirby
not
is
going to
well
continue to
aware
come
of
up
the
here.
public
Mr.
comments
Fabiano, you are
that
not
have been
going to
going
come up
on.
here and
I'll wait.
disparage the board members with false accusations again.
I am
Okay,
going
I
to
know you
read.
continue to harass me day in and day out, but I'm sorry, you're not going to come here and accuse me of things that I have not done. You can't sit here and say,
Okay, I'm
you
going
know.
to read a board member's comments on Facebook, which you have not discussed publicly. This is from Mrs. Michelle Scott from Jamesburg, speaking to Mr. Tufano. Going to try to be as PC as possible, but we are becoming overwhelmed by Spanish-speaking illegal aliens. Between the Dems who work for their heads between the Dems who keep their heads in the sand and refuse to wake up, the slumlords who have renters with God knows how many people sleeping on mattresses in one bedroom or apartment, our 1 square mile town is getting taken over by people that need to wake the F up to immigration issues in this country. I understand and sympathize with the issues in Monroe, but how much more real estate taxes can we pay for our small houses in this town? We need as much state aid as we can get, as long as we have Democrats allowing the infiltration of illegal aliens in our town. I live in an 1,100 square foot ranch on half of an acre, paying nearly $10,000 a year in real estate taxes, and for what? To give hard-earned tax money to pay to educate the children of illegals crossing the border, while my kids don't get an ounce of financial aid as citizens. So I'll take the $13 million we're getting, because it's still not enough to support the issue at hand, and at the end of the day, nothing is free, and state aid is coming out of tax dollars we all pay. No one's arguing that this country has an issue with illegal immigration. I don't think one person from either side of the aisle would argue that we have an issue, Democrat or Republican. But as board members, you have a responsibility to represent every child, white, black, Asian, female, male, gay, straight, poor, rich. I am sick that we can have a board member, I don't care you're speaking as a citizen, not speaking as a board member, all your BS caveats that you put online. Any board member who under the law is supposed to represent every child, the law in New Jersey says every child has a right to a public education. I don't care what the context is. Illegal. Did those illegal kids walk over that border in the middle of the night on their own in their scooters with their training wheels on? Did those illegal kids swim across the bayous and come here because, you know what, they wanted a place? These are kids, innocent children, and I don't care what they are you want to label them as. Illegal, non-illegal, dropped out of the sky. Kids deserve an education. So don't sit here ever and say you care about the kids when you disparage them. I don't care for your nonsense. When you see a kid walking down that street, you don't ask him, are you legal or are you illegal? You don't ask him when you make decisions, we're only going to educate the legals today. They're here. No matter how they got here, you have an obligation.
Thank you for your comments,
and
Mr.
it
Fabiano.
is
Your time is over.
disgusting.
Thank you. Ms. Scott, would you like to reply?
Yes,
to
I
that?
gladly would like to comment on that. First of all, you should have started at the context of the comment, and that was the question as to Monroe gets $1 million in aid and Jamesburg is getting over $13 million in aid. So first of all, start with the context of where the comment was taken from. Not once in that comment did I say anything about not wanting those children in our schools or anything about their skin color, their race, their nationality. I don't care if you're yellow with purple polka dots. I really don't. So now that you've got me fired up and it's after 11 o'clock, I'm going to start my statement at the beginning of where I wanted to. I'm making this statement in light of these recent statements that are accusing me of racist hate speech. Let's get your facts straight, people here. I am a direct descendant of African Americans that were brought to the United States through slavery. I'm of indigenous background through the Cherokee Nation. My great-grandparents immigrated here to the United States from Lebanon. My great-grandfather fought in World War I to be granted citizenship in this country, and I am a proud American female citizen supported by my First Amendment rights of the Constitution of the United States of America, and the statements I made were as a tax-paying citizen of Jamesburg. They had no representation of anything about Monroe. I have every right to say what I said as a citizen and a taxpayer. This is the Monroe Township Board of Education meeting, and we are here to discuss the business of this school district. I would be more than happy to debate you on and have a political discussion about my political beliefs and racial injustices, but this is not the place or the forum, and that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Scott.
Freedom, baby.
Seeing nobody else
You got
at
your
public
freedom of speech,
forum,
so do I.
the next item on our agenda is our closed session resolution. We don't have any items for closed session, so the next scheduled Board of Education meeting is March 27th, 2024. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.